learning how to write. I was learning the craft.
Well, shit, a lot of these stories would make really good, books.
I actually started with poetry as a kid because I like the rhyming stuff. So I used to write poems and stuff as a kid.
Where I cut my teeth and learned a lot was from reading a bunch of the screenwriting books and then writing a bunch of crappy screenplays.
Ever since I can remember writing, I started writing stories.
I think writing becomes like a drug. Like once you start, it's really hard to actually stop yourself.
Instead of going out with your friends, you're inside chasing the dragon of having breakthroughs with stories and characters and finding those perfect lines.
Use the rhythm of the story to, control how the audience sees the story.
And if you just read the words on the page, you're not engaging in it.
You can tell more of a story with a facial expression than you can from a huge word balloon taking up half the camera.
Sometimes as a writer, you wonder what the hell you're doing.
If you ever think that, am I just making it in the Kantian sense? Am I just making this up? Am I really alive? Am I really experiencing? Am I just an illusion?
The problem with fiction is reality.
You do not want your reader to feel let down.
I can do this. I think I can do this, but I want to do this.
Like when you give somebody a piece of poetry, and it can be someone who hates poetry, and then they read it, and you see that light hit, and you go, oh, I did it. Hey! Another episode of Writing Prose. I'm your host.
Frozen.
Oh no, she police squatted.
But at least she's in a happy pose,
That's true. That's
Did we lose her?
Hi! There you go. Hi, welcome back.
Bienvenido, welcome.
I was so proud of myself because for the first time in like 2 weeks, I didn't call myself Shae Zombie since I changed it recently. And then I lagged out anyway, so what the fuck does it matter? I was like, oh, motherfuckers.
Next time, Gadget. Mm-hmm.
Google,
It's
YouTube,
fine.
everything's acting funky right now.
This is
Yep.
this is the shitty thing is I try and stream when it's convenient for me, when I'm feeling a little bit more creative and whatever. And this is apparently the time of day that the internet that I pay an extra amount for decides that it's just going to say fuck you. And so this is
Of course.
Because why wouldn't it? Like, seriously. Anyway.
Murphy's Law.
Welcome to Writing Prose. Funny you say that. My nickname used to be Murphy for that exact reason.
It all suddenly starts to make more sense.
Right? Everybody's going, oh, it's not even a shocker. So we're here today with my super awesome panel. We've got Will. How you doing? You look depressed.
No, it's just late for me. I'm an early riser, unlike you maniacs who don't ever go to bed. So
okay,
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
You kill me. You're the reason that I don't sleep Sunday night into Monday morning.
Yeah, that's your problem.
Next to sad, tired, droopy little Will is Luke.
Oh, poor little pixie. Poor little pixie.
Yeah, our bodies are small. We need more time to sleep.
I don't take that track scientifically, at all.
We like to go into little nooks underground.
So you're a burrowing animal now. Okay,
exactly.
Cool. What up, y'all? Hello, everybody.
Below him, we have Brian. How you doing?
What's up? Hey, everybody.
Chaos.
Thanks for having me.
And we are lucky enough to have Jerry back with us. How you doing, Jerry?
Hello. From an undisclosed location called the library.
Which library this time?
Libraries are good.
The local library.
Okay. You know what? I love the fact that you want to be on this show so much that you will go on location as needed so you can be here.
Well, you would think in a first world country, internet would be available everywhere, but it's not.
Yeah. I mean, I did think that until I tried to stream with Skits and Karshana, and then I was
We
like,
don't even have, the top 5 best internet in the world. Are you kidding me?
I know.
Our internet sucks here.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
We have the slowest internet in the Western world. Ta-da!
It's still better than England.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, damn.
And still no high-speed rail. That's what we need. We need high-speed internet and high-speed rail.
Oh, we couldn't handle that, please.
No.
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 Our cities are too spread out. Way too
can't-
spread out.
We can't have nice things like that.
No.
Never gonna happen.
Anyway, welcome to episode 7 of Writing Prose, and we are going to be talking all about developing IPs. And I didn't know it was episode 7. I had to go back and check because I was like, this doesn't seem right. Then I looked and was like, oh shit, nope, there's 1 through 6. Okay, we've done this somewhat consistently. I'm proud of all of us. We actually have people that show up.
Awesome.
I know, right? Especially with as flaky as writers can be, where we're like, oh, I'm just gonna sleep and not show up for things.
I'm too deep in the process. I can't stop right now.
I need to go to a cabin in the woods in seclusion, and then I can write. Like, no.
Exactly.
And then you go to the cabin in the woods and you just sit there, just like staring at your word processor. And then playing video games instead.
I was gonna write my story, but then I got high.
Yeah.
Sitting alone in a cabin, I got really fucking high. Yeah, exactly.
It's been a while since I've seen a word processor.
Uh-oh. You writing by hand?
All right. So we had a couple of things we were going to talk about when it came to developing IPs. So one of the first things that I wanted to talk about was actually a question that was brought up, which is how does your process change, and how drastically different is it for you when you're writing your IP versus you're collaborating with somebody and you're trying to write their IP?
That's a really good question because it's one that I'm facing right now for the first time. Mr. Preston, Exit Only, Acevedo, invited me to rewrite a comic of his called Nine Devils. And this is what it looks like.
Oh, hold up.
Right?
Ooh,
this is a book that he wrote. Oh, you want to see something real bitchin'? This is a metal.
Grab off the shelf.
This is a metal cover.
Those things are awesome.
Okay,
yeah, aren't they?
Ryan Polito does those.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah, really badass, right?
Yeah.
Who did that cover?
That's by Preston.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
man.
Beautiful.
Stunning. I mean, seriously, the fact that he and Simon Poitier both have asked me to work on projects with them, I feel like I don't know, I'm that guy at the party, and the really, really, really hot chick is winking at me, and I'm kind of like, huh, what, me?
Somebody standing behind me? Yeah.
Yeah. But this is a comic that he did years ago, and he wants me to rewrite it. And so I'm not working with my own characters. I'm working with his characters.
Right.
But he's also given me a creative license. At the same time, I'm doing this with the intention that I want to make sure that it's still his baby, that I'm giving him things to draw that he wants to draw, that he's really going to enjoy drawing. You know, big Gustave Doré style battles between angels and heaven. And he also wanted some Escape from New York in there. So, I'm tapping into the part of me that's a fan of old Italian Mad Max ripoffs, 1990 Bronx Warriors and Nuevo Barbari and stuff like that. And it's I'm still in the beginning of the process. I'm still putting together the Bible, because of course this is world building, and it's not something I feel that I can just jump into.
I think that this marks 7 episodes where we've emphasized the importance of a Bible. I think it's been every single episode. It has been stated at least once.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because he's given me free reign to change the main character, who originally looked like this, right? That's Fane.
Hold up. Yeah, looks like Preston.
Looks like Preston.
Tell me it doesn't.
And yes, and he knows, and he's a little embarrassed by it.
Definitely looks like Preston.
And right, so this is just like a regular guy who's like plunged into a world where the apocalypse has happened. The armies of hell have risen and dominated the earth, and this is just a regular guy who's just dropped in there. And that's not the guy that I need for my story. I realized very quickly that what I needed for the story was a barbarian.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the type of character that I'm writing. Now, of course, it's not literally a barbarian in a loincloth, but he's a barbarian in the sense that, for instance, Riddick in Pitch Black is a barbarian.
I can see Riddick as a barbarian, sure. Maybe a bit more of a rogue, but yeah, sure. For the sake of argument, barbarian.
Yeah, and I'm a very big fan of Robert E. Howard and his pulp characters, and he always believed that the person that was going to save you wasn't going to be the intellectual, it wasn't going to be the person with the wisdom or with the education. It was going to be like that barbarian that's out there in the hills. Of course, here it's going to be the barbarian that's out in the wasteland.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a process that's still continuing. And I know there are some characters in there, supporting characters, that he feels a little more protective of. And so,
how much source material do you have to get familiar with the characters? Like, did he have any kind of notes on the characters? Did he have a book to set up already, or just the comic that he already made?
Just this comic.
Okay.
So basically, that's the task: is to take this comic and to make something new and hopefully better out of it. Because although it's beautifully illustrated,
his stuff reminds me of Tim Vigil.
Yeah, he's a big fan.
The black and white stuff reminds me a lot of Tim Vigil.
Oh, yeah, and he's actually got Tim Vigil doing a cover for him.
Hell yes.
Yeah. And
it's awesome.
Yeah, and right, but then he also puts in these characters who are like out of like a steampunk story. And so I'm not a steampunk guy.
Everything in the kitchen sink. So, like, You've been familiarizing yourself with the characters to write a Bible of the redux of the story. Is this basically what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seems like the best place to start.
Yeah, and it's very unnatural. It's interesting.
Right.
It's interesting. I'm having fun with it. I'm lucky.
Well, that's good. That's important.
I'm lucky because I've already done all the research. And that's to say, I've read the Bible, I've read the Apocrypha, I know the Book of Enoch very well, and I realized what we could do? How about we make this sort of like Jack Kirby's The Demon? Because one of the things he wanted to do was to include this character right here, right? And that's supposed to be one of the 9 devils. What I'm doing is I'm repurposing that character as Azazel, who is one of the Watchers. That's to say, one of the angels that didn't fall from heaven, but that descended from heaven to mate with human females. And they're the ones that were the progenitors of the Nephilim.
Mm-hmm.
A race of giants.
Yeah, that's what Goliath was, theoretically.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
And also, Azazel is perfect because he's the one who taught mankind how to use weapons, how to make armor and swords, and
Azazel.
Yeah, and so it's going to be like. So what I'm doing is I'm taking these 2 characters and I'm going to be fusing them, Captain Marvel style, Demon Jason Blood style. And giving him what he wants, which is a lot of really kick-ass action to draw, and cool, ominous shit. Of course, I'm going to be writing the devil himself, which is going to be interesting, but that's not going to be in the first issue. I'm just lucky that I've already, that this is something that I can that feels at home for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like somebody asking me to write like a romance or some other genre that I'm not quite as at home with,
Right.
Well, okay, so then that you're also writing for somebody else's IP.
Mhm.
So what? All of that.
What was the last thing you said? You froze.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you froze for a sec.
You said writing for someone else's IP.
Yeah.
Well, the general question of the theme tonight.
So what are your thoughts and feelings?
Like versus making your own shit.
Oh, well, I mean, it's a different process, and it's an interesting process. It's one I'm embracing. I'm happy to help Preston with this. He's going to be illustrating Six Gun Gorilla #8. He's doing a beautiful painted cover, a canvas cover, and we're looking forward to working as a team. I like to think that I'm easy to work with. I always try to be as kind to the artist as I can.
It's a good thing. They can stab you with pointy pencils.
There you go. Well,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and so I want to get Will's perspective because he's writing for Black Flag.
Interesting.
As well. So,
fantastic.
So what's that like?
Hail
What's
Dan
that
Fraga.
like for you, Will?
It's quite liberating because it's if the knocks are going to be on Dan, not me. So he's like a body shield for me to hide behind.
Bastard.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
So whatever happens, it's Fraga's name on the book. So it's like
good thing he's 6'2", eh?
It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Total Recall on the escalator. It's like and I can just throw Dan over and just keep going.
Exactly. Okay.
But
Human shield, right? Good job.
In all seriousness, though, it's been a lot of fun because Dan really is in the moment. He's in the moment as an artist, and he wants to tell the story as it is, and he's not really thinking about the periphery of things. He doesn't. It's not to say he doesn't care. Is that 100% of his brain is navigating through the visuals of the story and the sequences, and
that's where he's at. So
because we are essentially almost like brothers in two different halves of a brain, in terms of how we think, that I can do at the same time what he doesn't really feel like doing, which is fill in all the periphery.
Right.
And I don't want to say it again, but you're right. I have to make a Bible, and I'm writing one. Because we're going to be doing other books in this line, and
you're creating a universe.
Yeah, and why I think that's important is, for me, I don't know how to write in a fictional universe any characters unless I know what I'm talking about. Which means, if you're, for example, in Lord of the Rings, and they're walking around Middle Earth, what are they going to talk about in Middle Earth, right? What are they going to reference? Like, what's going to be, what are they going to say? They're not going to talk about Burger King in Middle Earth. So I have to have all this stuff written out so people have things to refer to in the story. And then things can, you can form inside jokes, so to speak, and inside or cross-pollination between properties. So that's why I have to fill out all that stuff. So when we can drop all those things in different IPs so they can talk to each other.
So you're essentially not just writing the Bible for Black Flag, you're kind of setting out the Bible for the Incredible Comics universe in general.
Okay. So
Okay.
that when we do the other books, there's not much else to think about. We can start
Cohesion.
dropping things in there very much easier. And that's stuff that Dan just does not have time to think about. So that's what I'm there for, because we're kind of writing the book in real time. Black Flag itself.
Right.
Oh, is that to say that you're writing pages and sending them to him, and he's illustrating?
No, we are talking them out.
Okay.
The way we're kind of writing this is like we're on a movie set.
Right.
Dan's director. I'm a writer.
Right.
He's like, okay, we're here on the set. Here's what it looks like. Here's what the actors are doing. I want to do this, and I want to read it like this. I'm like, okay, and it's a dialectic. It really is a dialectic. And it's not like, here, Dan, here's the script. He's not going to buy that. That's not how Dan works.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be like that.
No, it's good. It's been in real time. We have Skype sessions. We talk it out. I go and I transcribe it. I add things that are occurring to me. Goes back to him. We have another Skype, and then I type it out, and it's forming in real time. We have a plot. We're just writing it in real time.
Right.
Because then he can think of he can think of his layouts, he can think of his sequencing, and then we can weave it together in the course of the conversation, and we can be creative at the same time together.
Right.
So it's like a jam session, a live jam session.
Yeah.
There.
I was gonna say, I think for both of your creative processes, it works out because you're bringing a perspective that Dan may not have considered, but Dan knows like what kind of impactful like moments within his pages that he wants to highlight, or how a certain thing could go out. He might have a really specific shot, and having to make sure that you're writing around it, and so it fits organically. Yeah, I get what you're saying. That it's a different way to do it, but it's an interesting way for sure.
Not necessarily the most efficient way to do it, but the way you two are wired, it seems to be working for you. So,
right, well, and then it can only work in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, otherwise.
Yeah, and I was.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say that it could be, you know, depending on how you look at it, it could end up being more efficient because now Dan isn't. Like he's live storyboarding, at least in his head, even if he doesn't like put it down on paper right then, how these panels are going to go. So rather than it being a time that is just dedicated to writing, you're multitasking. It's a time that is dedicated to writing, paneling, storyboarding. And so it's not the most efficient for a lot of people because it's really hard to do all of those things simultaneously. Right. But in this situation and with their kind of dynamic, I mean, it makes sense, and it's cool that it works for them.
Yeah,
it's also cool that you can get immediate feedback, right? Mm-hmm. So you'll know. I guess Dan will let you know if you're kind of going in the wrong direction.
Well, we're talking at the same. We're recording these Skype sessions,
right?
Yeah,
and we end up creating a living document out of it that we're trading back and forth, and that's the organism. It's like a kombucha culture. It's like growing in this nourishing liquid. That's the living document of the, It's
fermented. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
And our discussion is like, I'm the black tea, he's the sugar, and the culture is sort of growing.
Right.
You know, in real time.
That's so cool.
Leave it to you to make a kombucha reference.
Sorry, I'm growing a bunch of it in the basement. So.
Obviously. What about you, Jerry? What do you think?
Well, I'm learning from these guys because I'm working on my own project. I've never worked on anybody else's. I'd be terrified to take on somebody else's. That responsibility just seems like a lot. Seems like a handful for sure.
Yeah.
It can be. There is that sense of responsibility that you have, you know, that you want to make sure that you deliver something that your client is going to be happy with. But if he's not happy with it, he'll let me know. And I'm not a prima donna, you know. I'll make changes if he wants. It's still his IP.
I mean, that's part of working with clients, being willing to make changes.
Absolutely.
You know?
Well, me and Dan are on the same ship, so it's in my best interest, you know, that we're both happy because it's Incredible Comics, our company.
Right.
Yep.
So,
right.
Get a vested interest in it, as it were.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And 2,000 backers, you know, that want to get a cool product too, you know.
Yeah. Hi. How are you?
Exactly. Me too. I back my own.
Well, you're damn well better.
Yeah, I'm gonna vote for myself.
Sure you get one.
I wanted that swag, so I backed it.
I'm not gonna lie. I accidentally backed it twice and refunded, and then intentionally backed it twice.
So you're the reason why we're not there yet. It's all your fault.
No, because I went back and I backed it for all but $10. Was the same amount that I accidentally backed it when I was drunk and backed twice because I couldn't remember. And apparently checking through contributions was very difficult because I was tipsy. Okay.
Drunk Indigo going. Woo!
I seriously,
it's like drunk Amazon.
I wish that they would change how they do that because going through 20 pages of campaigns to see if I've already backed something is killing me.
Oh yeah. Going through those pages takes forever. Absolutely.
It does, especially when they only show you like 5 at a time. It's insanity. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. We actually had a question for Will from Unhinged Entertainment. It says, does Will have his own IP that he'd like done?
Yeah, I have one that we want to get to next year that is kind of along the lines of what I was talking about. And, you know, I'm a history guy. I'm a trained historian. I'm a classicist. So I'm I'm wired to think big in worlds. The hard part for me is the little things like plot, because I think bigger. I like the world. I like the stuff that's around it. Who's speaking what language and why. I like the political situation, the economic situation. And everyone's like, what about the characters? Fuck the characters.
Such a nerd.
It's like George Romero, right? Like the characters were incidental to his story about wanted to tell a story about, consumerism at the mall, right? These guys are just going to be populating my political screed, so to speak, or my social screed. There is something I can't talk about it, unfortunately, but it is an IP. It's a world, and I feel pretty good about it because, like I said, it's my temperament to build the world, and then it trickles down to the characters, and then the world produces the characters.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't come up with a character like, say, F. Paul Wilson says, "Hey, I got this guy Repairman Jack," because Repairman Jack wanders around in our world, right? I'm like, okay, I'm going to make up my own, and what's the thesis going to produce? What's that? What guy lives there? What girl lives there? What language do they speak? How are they informed by it? And it's going to generate itself. Same thing with Dan and Black Flag, right? We're creating an alternate universe in the Black Flag universe. What's Dagger City going to produce? What's the social structure there?
Mm-hmm.
Right. What kind of
that's
people,
the fun part. Yeah,
right. That's what's going to make the city actually feel like it's lived in. Yeah.
Well, because once you create the machine, which is the world,
right,
and it's like a formula, right? The formula will produce the answer, and that's the fun part because now you have these parameters, and the parameters are going to give you all these different types of characters. They're going to populate it.
Right.
Absolutely. That's the important part, I think, for laying the groundwork of the IP, because then now you know what you're talking about when you write characters.
Yeah, those are really excellent points, because like one of the things I want to do in that first issue is lay down the universe, lay down the different social groups, right, and the hierarchy that exists, not just amongst the demons but also amongst the humans. And of course, the trick is to do it in a way that's not clumsy. That's
usually helpful.
Yeah, you want to do it in a way that's going to tell the story, just immerse you in the story immediately, and to keep it moving. And that once you do have the world, then you start asking yourself, well, what kind of people would populate this world? Well, what would somebody that's living in like a bombed out New York City that's being like ruled over by a demon be like, right? And there'd be people living underground. There'd be people living in hollowed out buildings. There'd be people eating rats. There'd be people that would be, hustling, backstabbing each other. And there'd be people that would be religious, and there'd be people that wouldn't be religious, and so on and so forth.
You know what does this really well, and it's kind of funny to bring this up, but it's our role playing games. Like for example, Vampire, right? You had Vampire, which gives you the world. And then you tailor, like natural selection, a character to that world, and you play it, right? But you're playing along the parameters of the world of darkness, right? You're playing a vampire as part of a clan. They're part of a house, a hierarchy. They have certain powers, certain prejudices, certain social groups, and that's going to inform how you play it. I think that's a cool way to look at an IP, because you're essentially crafting stories within an IP when you're playing those role playing games.
Mm-hmm. Basically,
I think Vampire is a good example of that.
Yeah, that's I hadn't even thought about that, but that's a really interesting way of approaching the that particular problem.
That's always the reason why I loved tabletop RPGs, D&D. Like you're like freeform writing. You're I don't know.
You got stats, you got power, you got equipment, and that's all gonna form your character while when you're jigging around with these different attributes and places in the world that they come from.
Oh yeah, and like alignment, for instance. I was thinking with my hero. Well, gee, what's he going to be like? I was like chaotic good.
I forgot about all that in D&D. Chaotic good.
Yeah.
And your Thaco.
Right.
The alignment is always going to inform how the character acts as well.
Absolutely.
So that's a good example. I think that's a good training for young storytellers was playing role-playing
Absolutely.
games.
Oh,
So is DMing a session.
Yeah,
Oh,
because that's what they're doing.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I used to. My goodness, D20 for life over here. When I was 14 years old, I got into it, and it's what helped me survive junior high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an opportunity to DM a game for a friend of mine's kids. He was like, "Well, it's like my kids want to get into D&D because, of course, now it's cool."
Mm-hmm.
Right? There isn't that social stigma that there used to be, which is wonderful because now kids can actually experience what it's like to engage in cooperative storytelling
Mm-hmm.
and what it's like for people to create characters that they use to entertain each other. But then, of course,
characters, like, you always have that one friend in D&D. He's like, then I get out my giant sword that just kills everything. You're like, you don't have that. Stop trying to do that.
I don't know if you guys remember.
Own that.
Do you guys remember Champions?
Yeah, I remember Champions.
So Champions gave you the opportunity to essentially create a whole superhero universe.
Yeah, it did.
And I remember playing some Champions games.
I did.
Yeah.
Where you had like Mutants and Masterminds?
No.
It's like that. It was like D&D, but with superheroes. You could create like a mutant. You would have different powers and attributes. Sounds a lot like Champions.
Champions let you if you were creative enough, you could have a whole superhero universe, and that was fun because if you got a good DM, you would have all these layers of superheroes and references and dead guys from other games, and references to things. And like I said, it's training when you're doing that.
Absolutely.
I think that you're going to write the rules of the universe one way or the other. You're either going to write it as you're writing the story, which kind of looks clumsy after you're finished, or you're going to think about those details ahead of time, and it's going to make your writing look a lot more polished.
Right.
That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing.
And it gives you guardrails too when you're writing the story because it gives you an internal logic to follow.
Absolutely.
There's one thing that pisses me off is not so much suspension of disbelief, because I always do that because I want to suspend disbelief, right? It's more so I
almost necessary to suspend disbelief.
Right, yeah, when they violate their internal logic. For example, I like the movie Alien 3. I like it.
I did
but I just can't get over the beginning where there's one facehugger laying 2 eggs. Like, I know it's stupid, but you've been telling me for 2 movies that it's a disposable parasite. Lays an egg, dies.
Right.
But suddenly it's impregnating multiple people and it's like doing all this crazy stuff, and like I don't like it. Like I don't. It takes me out of the movie when the internal logic is violated because what it's telling me is the script says so.
And that's the worst. And that's the worst thing that you can do is take your reader out of your story.
Right. So I think even is there anything else that we can think of that violates internal logic pretty badly?
Star Wars,
the Matrix sequels.
Do they?
Yeah, oh God, I'm trying to think of a specific example, and I'm coming up empty. I smoke too much weed.
That's my line.
You two kind of compete for that. Just throwing that.
Oh yeah.
There.
All right, cool. Smoke weed every day.
It's
I think Agent Smith kind of violated some of the internal logic. He kind of became like way too OP. I mean, it's been years since I've watched the Matrix trilogy.
Right.
The first one was really good, and I felt like if they had actually made the second 2 like right on the heels of that, they might have been able to pick up the rest of that magic. But the second 2 movies were just
yeah, that's a good example of what Statistical Zero said. Highlander. Highlander's a great example of just okay, let's just kind of forget about what we did in the first one.
Yes.
Now they're from the planet Zeist.
Oh,
what?
But I think the Renegade one's even worse, where they just said in the past, in history.
Right.
Yeah. It's like guys with shotguns, like running around, like I don't know, in like or something, like wherever this is supposed to take place.
And what drives me crazy is that movie was written by Brian Clemens, who I'm a huge fan of. Brian Clemens wrote The Avengers. That's the TV series, with Emma Peel and Steed. And he also wrote one of my favorite movies, Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter.
Nice.
And his work was always really clever and stylish. And I think he just he obviously must have watched the first movie, but I don't think he felt attached to it in any way, shape, or form. And so it's like, okay, well, you need more immortals. Like, how do you?
I mean, the only way around it is what, right? Like, didn't he win the prize? Was that just like a really good quickening he got? That wasn't a real quickening. It was just like a good one.
Well, see, but then you're also running into the whole sequels undoing what was, a perfectly wrapped up story in the first one.
It's the RoboCop syndrome.
Right. So then you do get writers who will come in and do what I refer to as the batshit crazy sequel, right? Exorcist 2, The Heretic, for instance, is one of those. A lot of horror films, a lot of horror sequels are kind of a little crazy like that. Beneath the Planet of the Apes, right?
Yeah.
That movie is bonkers. It starts out as just a rehash of the first movie, right? Because they need Taylor, but they didn't have Charlton Heston for more than a short period of time. So now we need to repeat the entire first half of the first movie with a new actor just to set everything up. And then it just in the last act goes completely insane. With the mutants underground. And then I remember as a little boy when Charlton Heston blows up the world. He blows up the planet. And I remember thinking, you can't do that.
And Statistical Zero said Planet of the Apes is a cyclical series. You can call any of the installments the first.
I was reading the Tarzan Planet of the Apes crossover, and it used the Hess-line theory, and it basically made everything like a circular continuity, or whatchamacallit. So I mean, sometimes these fuck ups. It
has been 20 years since I've watched the Planet of the Apes movies, like the original ones.
Right.
I don't think I've ever watched the remakes.
The Tim Burton ones.
I gotta read this one out because that was really sweet. Unhinged says, "Why this show doesn't get more attention is beyond me. Fantastic knowledge and insights for all." Thank you so much, Unhinged. I very much appreciate it. Which leads me into, if you are enjoying this banter and you enjoy this show, please share this out. Help us get more viewers. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, because this is something that we want to keep doing long term.
Absolutely.
And I genuinely enjoy this. Even when everything opens back up and I'm going back to work normal hours, I plan on still doing this at 10 o'clock on Sundays. And Mondays be damned, they'll just be shitty days. I don't care, because this is fun.
and you know what? And you know what? We can learn from each other. Now,
exactly.
I'm going to take inspiration from you, Will. The notion of approaching that's okay. Of looking at at your universe from a role playing game perspective. My goodness, man! I was in the Gamma World, Star Frontiers, you name it. Back in the day, I played it.
Well, the thing is, there's a lot.
GURPS?
No, a little GURPS. GURPS.
GURPS is the only system where you can. Right? GURPS is the only system where you can go to walk across the room, roll really bad, and kill yourself.
Yeah, generic universal
I tried that shit
system.
once.
Yeah.
No, I tried that shit once. Never again.
Well,
never again.
Marvel superheroes. I'm sorry, Shae.
I was gonna say, this is one thing that I think that a lot of people don't realize when it comes to writing, because it's so easy to get overwhelmed and bogged down and feel like everything is 100% this is all on you to come up with completely autonomously, without any help, without any inspiration from other people. This has to all come organically from you. Mm-hmm. And we forget that there's a lot of places that you can pull from. Fan fiction does it all the time, where they go and they take a world that's already created and make characters that live within that world. You've got a lot of role-playing games. You got a lot of MMOs. If you want to know what a certain character might play out, you can go into any number of MMOs, create it, and put it out there in the world. And you can even, if you're really into it and you're, okay with doing a little bit of I guess you could put some of those lines out that you want to maybe use in a book or something, and see how they land live with people that you're around. And so you can, go and say something and see what the takeaway is from it, and if people go for it or if they don't, especially if you go on an RP server.
Right.
Prime example of that, except in pen and paper. Drew Hayes, the creator of Poison Elves, his character Lucifer was a D&D character that he played for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Lucifer became so powerful in the game that it was just no fun for Drew to play him anymore. Killed everything in like 1 to 2 hits. So he went ahead and created Poison Elves with his D&D character, and had a long-running series at first self-published and then at Sirius. One of my favorites.
I would be very interested in how many D&D characters have ended up in fiction and in comics and in movies, right?
Remember Drizzt Do'Urden, like everyone's favorite dark elf from back in middle school in the Dragonlance novels that everybody read?
Right. Yeah, the R.A. Salvatore novels.
Yeah, those are hugely popular when I was in middle school.
Yeah, me too.
That and hell, you know what? The Timothy Zahn novels for Star Wars.
Yeah.
God,
yeah, the Thrawn series.
That was like the quintessential lack of a sequel that we had, and it was everyone's like, please do those books. That's an example of the IP producing something superior than what's come after it.
Absolutely.
Everyone was like, why didn't they just do that?
I know.
Well, they did bring Thrawn into the canon universe.
Thrawn is canon?
Yeah, Thrawn is canon now. They did comic series. Marvel did a 5-issue miniseries that they then collected into a trade.
Yeah, well,
people seem to like it.
Well, here's the thing about canon, is that canon doesn't really exist because we have this thing called the retcon, and so it's canon until it's retconned. Right? We had the entire Dark Horse.
I mean, we got smart motherfuckers thinking they know better than our progenitors.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, pretty much.
I know better than these old guys. I can put this really neat twist on it. You just unraveled it. Good job.
Well, this is the thing that pisses me off about that, is this is the equivalent. This is the writing equivalent of when they remake a character's design and art. The writer equivalent is this whole retcon of what was canon is no longer because I know better. It's the same thing when you have somebody who decides that they're going to redesign like Supergirl or good heavens, Squirrel Girl, the way that they redesign.
You mean to look like a potato?
I'm going to not get off on a tangent. However, what I am going to say is when you take a character that is already existing and you change them so unrecognizably, at that point, you were to have made a new character, not destroy an established one.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's so many people who are so either afraid of having to be original enough to create a new character with a new storyline, even if it is tangential and very, very close to a storyline that already exists. That's fine. Make it different. Make it what you want it to be. It's not Squirrel Girl. Make it like Chipmunk Dude. I don't give a fuck what you do.
Right.
But don't take the character that already exists and destroy them because you are too afraid to be creative enough to make your own character.
You know what was a good example of following canon but expanding on it? Was when Chuck Dixon did Warzone Punisher, and he said, "Okay, wait a minute," and he was talking to John Romita, and they said, "I like the idea that the Punisher is Italian, right? At Ellis Island they changed it from Castiglione to Castle, and that kind of informed the story because he's Italian in terms of his ethnicity, and remember he infiltrates the mob, as like a muscle in that book, and he has an affair with the mob guy's daughter.
Yeah,
I'm like." That doesn't change the character; it just expands on it. Doesn't make him unrecognizable because you never heard Frank talk.
It's like it's like making the Thing Jewish.
It expands the backstory. It gives them character. It's another layer.
Okay,
absolutely.
Right. Well, we just lost Denny O'Neil passed away a couple like 2 days ago, and he lived very close to me. I actually got a chance to know him a little
Beastmaster
bit.
2.
Beastmaster 2, oh gosh.
We don't, apparently we don't
with
talk
Wings
about
Hauser and his skinny legs.
Yeah, man.
Those movies are fun. I don't care.
I am Arklon. Arklon.
I know, it's so bad. Yeah, Ben Grimm is Jack Kirby, exactly. Denny was teaching a class on writing comics at my local community college.
That's
awesome. As part of the adult learning program. And I just happened to pick up this thing that I got in the mail, and I saw writing a comics class taught by Dennis O'Neil. What the fuck? Yeah. And so I signed up for the class, which was wonderful. He was wonderful. And he talked about a lot of his blunders. One of those blunders was taking Wonder Woman's powers away. He felt that, feminism was the thing at the time, and that he wanted to make Wonder Woman more relatable. So he took away her powers and had her learn karate and judo.
Is that in the 80s when she had that pantsuit costume that looked god awful?
No, this was in the 70s. Early 70s.
Was she wearing a pantsuit though?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever decade it was, but okay. Good.
Yeah. Horrible mistake on his part.
Okay.
Terrible. And the readers were outraged, and the women were outraged. I'm not a fan, but Gloria Steinem called them and was pissed off. And they said, looking back now, it's I can understand why that pissed off women, because they liked the idea of this fantasy figure that could do almost everything that Superman could, but that was a woman. Another interesting thing that he discussed was the creation of Damian Wayne. I think it was Mark Barron in Son of the Demon that created, where Talia al Ghul drugs Bruce Wayne and
Mike Barron.
Mike Barron.
Okay.
Was it? Yeah. And
there could be a Mark Barron. I'm just
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. It's not Mike Barron. It is Mark Barron, right?
Okay.
And so, at the very last panel, you see Talia al Ghul holding their child. So, there's a Bat Baby now, and and Denny took him for a walk in the park and told him yeah, dude, sorry, I'm gonna get rid of the Bat Baby. And he was crushed because he felt that this is my addition to the canon. This is something that I'm creating that's gonna have a lasting a legacy. And so they got rid of the Bat Kid. And then we mentioned to him, oh, by the way, yeah, Grant Morrison just brought him back. And he was like, shit. And Damian Wayne is an awesome character, I think, and was used to beautiful effect. But yeah, you want to add to the canon, you want to add to the mythos, to the lore, in a way that's not going to break it.
Well, that brings up a question. Do you think that an IP can get so big that it has so much lore behind it that any writer coming in just about can't write because of fan reaction or because of past lore, past just the backstory?
That's a really good question.
No, I think that with proper research and with enough study of the characters and the backstories and stuff like that, you can find different stories to tell. Mm-hmm. You can find different angles to add to the mythos instead of destroying what has come before. I think the problem that a lot of these writers run into is that they get lazy. They're like, oh, here I could do this, but that's what everybody was. If that's the first thing you come up with, that's what everybody else is going to think of as well. That's lame.
Yes.
Do something else,
Yes.
Go beyond that. If that's the first thing you thought of, what's the third and fourth thing you thought of after that?
Well, and if I'm going to be honest, I think when it comes to a lot of these kinds of IPs and stuff that people have established and built up and have created this giant world around, what ends up happening is people that come in are people that are coming in looking for something that they think is going to be easy because it has a dedicated fan base and that is going to be a paycheck. Not something that they care about, not something that they want to see grow. And a lot of these people that are being brought in are almost bullying their ways into like the comic book industry, the writing industry as a whole, because well, some company, some publisher was being accused of not being inclusive enough. Some publisher out there was being accused of being male dominated. So they went out and they hired the first female that they could find who applied and said, you come in so people can't say that we're, anti-feminine.
Be our token. Yeah.
And never mind you're a hack.
And
you're going to hack it.
Exactly. And it's like, don't worry, it'll be fine. It's a well-established IP. You're going to do fine. And then these people come in with a bar already being set for them so unbelievably low that all that they have to do is put words down on a page.
Absolutely.
And put their name on the cover. That's it.
You would think if you had the
Ta-Nehisi Coates.
You would think if you had the honor of writing for one of these large IPs that you would have the respect to look up and research what you're writing about. Or
you're all lazy.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
I'm just saying normal people take it serious.
It's like, wait a second, I'm writing Thor, but there's 500 issues? I'm not going to read 500 issues, so I'm going to read no issues.
Well, I think what it really gets down to is that a lot of these people have been told their whole lives that they're special. They've been told that they're they've been told that they are phenomenal writers because the only people that they ever talk to are friends and family. And I'm sorry, if the only people you were ever going to are friends and family, 99% of the time your friends or family don't have enough of a backbone to tell you when you suck.
I have no friends, so that helps.
Will doesn't have friends.
So so that helps.
How does this work? Oh, it's
if
terrible.
you weren't so damn abrasive, Will.
I have no family either, so that helps as well.
Will's the one that
again, if you weren't so damn abrasive, Will.
Will's a Brillo pad.
It's a
Brillo pad to
it's
a
all right.
nonstick.
I'm abrasive as well. That's why we get along, buddy.
Same. I was told I was too mean the other day.
Oh,
my delivery is too on point for people. I'm too mean and aggressive, and I need to tone it down.
Oh shit! You get to the point. You don't
I
talk
do.
bullshit. Oh no!
This is why I get along with guys, because whenever I'm around a girl, she's like, "You're really mean." I'm like,
I think you're quite sweet.
Look, if I'm writing shit, I want to know it because I don't care about my fifis. To me, it's always about the finished product, and the finished product is boom. It's outside of me. It's there. I want that thing to be good. My God, Daniel,
how do you fix anything? How do you fix anything if nobody tells you that it's fucked up? How do you get any better if you don't get any criticism?
If I show it to you, I want to know what you think about it.
Yes, and be brutally, ruthlessly honest, because you know what? I can take it because I don't take it as a criticism of me as a person. Right. I don't even take it as a criticism of my skill as a writer. I take it as a criticism of that thing.
That particular work.
So for somebody like me, I think one of the, and this is probably a whole other like show in and of itself, is criticism of writing, which I think is probably a very important one that will be what we do.
And you had to actually be trained for that at one point. You had to actually be very well trained to be a critic at one point. You had to actually be well read, in language and in literature, and
that explains
used to be
all the critics now.
The classics, people read the classics.
Like C.S. Lewis, who was trained as a literary critic, and he could do it damn well.
Right.
It's almost like you expect editors to know what they're doing.
I know, right? I
those
expect them to be
don't
qualified to
exist
do their job.
anymore.
Well,
Yeah.
I studied literary criticism too. I was a lit major at university. At the same time, when I sit down to criticize my own work, I'm not coming at it from any number of different disciplines. I'm just trying to let the whole thing wash over me and trust my intuition. Like, how does this feel, right? If a piece of dialogue feels stilted, for instance, that's why I always make sure to read my dialogue out loud, so that way
Doesn't sound like it would naturally come out of someone's mouth.
Exactly, because even if it reads okay generally speaking, if it doesn't roll off the tongue easily, it's not going to read very well on the page.
I found that to be true too.
Yeah. So there are all of these little tricks.
And one of the things that I wanted to say when it came to specifically when it comes to taking criticism and having somebody like read over your stuff, as for me as a female writing, I know that most people are expecting me to write a very specific kind of thing. And sadly, currently, that's one of the things that I write, which is poetry. Every fucking girl out there thinks that she's a damn poet. Every girl out there.
Yeah, every hot girl's a poet.
Yeah, and every goth girl with a black and white camera thinks she's a photographer
exactly.
too. So,
yes,
that's true. It's true.
She's an amazing photographer. You just like getting laid with her. Come on.
Yeah.
So the thing that
I like black and white
hits
photography, man. Shut up.
I'm just really into it. It's fine. So for me, when I'm asking somebody to give me feedback on something, I genuinely want feedback because I already know I have an uphill battle thanks to a whole bunch of dumbass thoughts before me that are doing stupid shit that I now have to try and I understand I'm being a stereotype right now, but I genuinely enjoy doing this, and I genuinely think that some of the stuff that I put out is at least decent.
But Shae, you can make a lot of money if you did Bigfoot erotica. I mean, look at Amazon. Look at how much those things sell.
I could, but at what cost? Well, at what cost? I have
probably
morals
make a bunch
and
of
values and a reputation. Damn it!
Mm-hmm.
I eat weird shit and dry hand turkeys. I don't do Bigfoot, Big Bill erotica bullshit. Okay.
Oh man,
it's a respected genre.
No, it's
Scholars will be studying it.
That's like saying furry porn is a respected genre.
Oh.
The fuck?
Oh, okay, all right. So we're gonna change course before we go too much farther down that.
Chaos.
Holy shit. Okay, so how do you guys? Because I understand. From my understanding and limited knowledge of writers, not that I am one or am around a lot of them.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
That was tongue in cheek, guys.
Okay,
Tongue in cheek.
Okay.
Har har. Anyway. Everybody got real defensive for a second. Shit. So how do you guys?
How dare you be self-depreciating?
Look, I'm always self-deprecating. It's fun.
It is.
Deprecating, thank you.
I got you. What happens when you have 30 different IPs in your head? How do you go about selecting the one that you're going to actually try and follow? You have all of these different characters, all of these different worlds, all of these different stories that you want to tell. How do you go about selecting what one you're going to focus on?
The one
Which one's loudest?
Yeah.
Which one
haunts you?
Yeah, exactly. Which one is bouncing around in your head and is screaming the loudest and keeps coming up like, hey, remember this scene? Yeah, that would be really cool if you fucking did it. That one.
Yeah.
I call it having legs. Just seems like it has legs. It just runs
there
on.
You go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think for me, I mean, it depends what I'm reading and what I'm learning at the moment, and what themes are getting stuck in my head. And if there's something that can line up to it that's a narrative and I can dump all that thematic material into it, that one's going to yell the loudest at me. Like, ooh, I know I can play with these ideas in this story.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to explore them. And this is it's sort of like the Wachowskis with The Matrix, right? They kind of put everything into that first movie.
Right.
Absolutely.
All of their
Well, they
all
were
of
still
their,
high off of reading the Invisibles, so of course they did.
right, but also stuff they were interested religiously, Japanese animation, everything
Oh,
they
yeah.
could just throw in.
Gnosticism, Philip K. Dick, Hong
Right.
Kong action films, David Cronenberg.
So I like Statistical Zero's approach to it is which one that you know how it ends. And I'm going to be
always
honest, because for me, I know what stories I want to have happen. Like I generally, when I'm thinking of a story, I think of it'll be centered around one or two characters that I really want to develop, a specific event that I want to have happen, and about 40% of the time how I want it to end. The rest of the time I have no fucking clue where I'm going with it or like how it's going to develop. It's a matter of writing out that one event and then seeing if anything before or after speaks more to me or if that one event is going to be it.
Sure.
So
not knowing how it's going to end, I find exciting and exhilarating. Like that, I like not knowing how it's going to end.
I can't do that.
I have an idea. I have an idea of how I think it might end, but not knowing exactly how it's going to end, I love that shit. Because if I don't know how it's going to end, ain't nobody else know how it's going to end either.
So the only problem with that is making sure that you don't fuck your readers because you didn't know how it was going to end, so you take them on this fucking weird ass wild goose chase that's like your string of consciousness, and then magically you end up in an ending.
There's stream of consciousness, and then there's tempering that so it actually makes fucking sense. Okay, that's what rewrites are for.
Yeah,
you do that stream of consciousness first draft, then you go back and you fix shit that doesn't make sense.
Well,
plugging in plot holes.
Yeah, but here's the thing that's interesting about the medium that we're working in, right?
Yeah.
You look at Charles Dickens. Love Charles Dickens.
Sure.
But his novels are sloppy as hell. And that's because he was working in a similar medium to the medium that we're working in, which is to say it's serialized storytelling. The problem with serialized storytelling is that if you realize, 10 issues in, it's like, oh man, I fucked up in issue number 3. You can't go back and fix that.
Nope.
That fuck up is there. We have to reckon with that. And that's what is, challenging for me writing the first issue of what's going to, hopefully be a long-lived series.
And that's what makes me not want to write a serialized story is because I'm like, man, I am not going to pay attention enough. I'm not going to remember my own shit enough to know that I said something, and I'll say something that will be pivotal. But I will fucking undo it 3 books later.
But here's
the thing. Damn it.
But here's the thing. There's a big difference between creating a series that is open-ended, that could go on forever, and something that is finite, like 6 issues, 10 issues, 12 issues, right? That's much easier. That way I can start with my ending, right? I always make sure I have my ending. But that doesn't mean I have to stick to it. I can change the ending, but for me, everything is building up to that ending. And for me, it's a lot easier to work. It's like working through a maze backwards, that it's easier that way.
Yeah, and just like Unhinged says, going back to what you've written before to double check, I turn into a lazy writer, so that's something that I need to fix. He also said, "Don't you? You just sit there and draw your pretty pictures."
I'll look pretty too.
But hold on, can I just point out we're over here doing a writing stream, and Luke is showing all of us up by being a fucking artist right now.
Sexy one too.
Oh, I bet you say that to all the blue-haired weirdos, don't you?
I do. I love what Statistical Zero said. Then you have to go with the Hans Christian Andersen method. There were 2 lovers in a beautiful garden. Then they were killed.
Yeah.
Then they were killed. Yeah.
So Unhinged wants to know what your thoughts are. Would it be easier to develop an IP with another person to have a back and forth with problem solving?
Yes.
Heck yes. Yes.
That depends on the person. That depends on whether you vibe with that person, because you can also see where that could turn really ugly, where egos get involved or people aren't exactly gelling right.
I'm a natural worker by nature, so I don't mind having Dan as like the executive authority, and I find that
Well,
quite
that takes a lot of
liberating.
pressure. Yeah, I was about to say that
Yeah.
probably takes a hell of a lot of pressure off of you.
All I got to do is just pew, 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 and he's going ting, 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 and I'm like, okay, cool. I can just throw as many bullets as I want, and I never run out.
That's
You're the
cool.
one who's got to like pick which one's going to hit you,
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's fun for me, but once again, he's getting something out of that. He's getting the, feeling that he's not alone and not tunnel visioned,
Right.
and backed into a corner.
You're a sounding board. You guys both throw ideas back and forth, and you guys figure out what works, what resonates with the story you're trying to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
I think having like whoever the designated person is that is kind of like this is my like lead, this is my baby kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you're collaborating with somebody else, like Luke and I were talking out a story the other day, and Luke, like at one point Luke had said something and I was like, it wasn't quite like that, and he was like, it's your story. And he was like, you tell me how it was, and I was like, I'm not really sure. It wasn't quite like that. And he, and I was like, but I like that idea better. And he was like, well, I'm not trying to change shit because in this whole situation, this was my baby. Yeah. But being able to kind of know when there is that kind of gridlock of like one person saying one thing, one person saying another, and they contradict one another and they cannot at all coexist. It has to be one or the other. It cannot be both. Right. Who do you end up deferring to in that situation? I think having that kind of clear line before you start a collaborative project is a very important piece, because then it turns into, okay, I think that this would be better. What do you think would be better? We hash it out a little bit. If we can't come to an agreement, it defaults to the person who has previously designated that this is their baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it turns into, okay, we'll do it that way.
Yeah.
And
whoever originated the concept.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. In my case, it's Dan. So
yeah, exactly.
For me, it's Preston, and I've told him, like, dude, you have veto power, and he's been very gracious. He's just like, dude, you do anything you want, and I'm like, yeah, but this is still your baby. I want to make sure that you're happy with it, and that I'm not putting words in characters' mouths that they would never say.
Well, the flip side of what we're talking about here is the fact that you can have that person that's yes to everything. It doesn't give you any feedback, or the feedback they give you is just at some point you realize, oh, they're just
what fucking good is that?
Yeah, rubber stamping everything, and it sucks for you. It can be just as devastating as having that person that you constantly clash with.
Yeah.
Hence of my abrasiveness, Dan really likes, which is like that shit is whack. I don't know. It's going to be terrible.
That's what I want to hear.
But that's really important.
Ruthless honesty.
But I'll write you a whole 50-page essay of why I think it's whack. I won't just go, it's whack.
Of course.
Why.
You have to tell me why it sucks.
But I don't want a dissertation on why it sucks. Like, get to the fucking point. All right.
I really will criticize you. It won't simply be like, Brian, you're just so inferior to me.
That's kind of the difference, though, is like, I think, I'm going to be wholly honest, like, as much as I love Will and I love talking with Will, I think that collaborating with Will would drive me up a wall.
I know.
And it's because
I'm very encouraging of you.
No. What I'm saying is because you consider so much more in a story than I am ever willing to dive into. You want to know every aspect of the world, the people, what's going on, why all of this exists. I generally am focused on telling one small story and then moving on from that. And you'll see how you can develop that into a living, breathing thing, even if it is just one story.
I'll just keep asking you questions. Why this? Why that? Why this? Why that? And I'm not trying to be a dick. I just want to know.
No. Right. And
he's just a curious lad.
Exactly.
But it's great for certain stories and it's great for certain personalities. But I think that I would have to have a story that I really wanted to have longevity in order for me and you to work together in a collaborative effort. Otherwise, I think that I would just want to stab you by the end of it and be like, oh my gosh, Will, it just fucking is. Leave it alone.
Like, shut up. It's just cool, okay?
Right. Like, we're not going into why. It's just awesome. And they're going to have a fucking force field and you're just going to like it, okay?
There's a distinct possibility she already wants to stab you just a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. But that actually, Shae, that impasse can actually say, if you're the boss and you say it's a force field and that's it, that's actually a fun challenge. Say, okay, how can I give Shae what she wants and not and satisfy myself a little bit and not make it stupid, right?
Yes, that is important. Do not make it stupid.
Readers are going to ask questions.
Exactly.
Yeah, so okay, how can I? So if Shae says this force field is going to stay in this part of the story, I don't care what happens. I want my force field. I want my Wookiee. I want my giant spider. If you know you're Kevin Smith.
Oh God, no!
I want my
giant
fucking spider.
Fuck the giant spider.
I'll figure out how to get Shae her giant fucking spider in the third act. Okay.
Fuck that fucking spider.
Unhinged did not say don't work with Will. I said that I might not work well with Will, is what I said. Will is a phenomenal person to work with, and if you get a chance to, you are damn fucking lucky.
I'll just give you what every woman who's had the good heart to sleep with me have said. I am exhausting.
Probably not in the way you want to be exhausting either.
Hell yeah.
Oh my gosh!
I'm exhausting, and I am. What is the other word that somebody said? Incorrigible. That was the other word.
Incorrigible. I see both of
The
those.
combination.
So incorrigible and exhausting.
Incorrigibly exhausting. It's terrible.
If they can deal with you being exhausting, then they'll allow you to be incorrigible.
And there's certain projects. So if I would do something that was going to be big and elaborate, and that I knew I was probably going to have a propensity for a lot of plot holes or a lot of issues because I squirrel out like a fucking 12-year-old. I would probably want to I'd probably want to hang out with Will and be like, hey, can you collaborate with me? Because I know you're going to poke holes in every fucking thing I say. And as much as I'm going to want to punch you, I'm going to have a better product for it. But if I'm wanting to do something that I think is just going to be kind of wicked and metal and dark and whatever, I'm probably going to want to go with Luke. Because Luke and I are going to collaborate pretty well on a one-off short, going to be super fucking crazy and super fucking dark because we have that same kind of mentality and personality. If I want something that is going to have a very extensive background and have a lot working for it, it might be a burn, but it's going to eventually pop into something huge, I'm probably going to want to work with Brian. Because that's something that you have a kind of tenacity for. Is it might start a little slow, but it's because you are creating so much, and then it's all going to be relevant. And when it's relevant, it's going to be a fast-moving, relevant thing.
How do you know what IP?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
How do you know what IP is going to be that huge story? You know, you might write this one book, this 24-page floppy, and then it just take off, and it becomes something.
You never know. You never know. Look at Robert Kirkman.
I'm a control freak, so there are certain things in my head that I've got ideas that could take off. I don't think they will, but could take off. And if they do, that's kind of too bad because they're meant as one-offs and they will stay one-offs because that's how they are in my head. And I'm not going to compromise the power of them for something that might sell because the art form is more important than the profit.
There have been writers who have been haunted by their creations, where they've wanted to leave them behind, but their damn audience won't let them. Right? Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. That's a good example. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle with Sherlock Holmes. He dropped them off the not Niagara Falls.
Reichenbach Falls.
Reichenbach Falls.
Yep.
Right?
Edward Gibbon.
Bye. See ya. But then people were like, well, we need more. We need more Sherlock Holmes. Oh, okay, he's back again.
I think Edward Gibbon said the same thing when he finished Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. He's like, I've been held hostage for 13 years. I give this work to you. Yeah, he actually says that in the introduction to that
I've read
giant work.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, God, this sucked. Now I'm sick of it. Go away.
Yeah.
Warren Ellis. I sent a message to Warren Ellis on Twitter like years ago. I was like, hey, more Transmet. And he's like, no, story's done. I was like, but you left it open. He's like, no, dude, the story's done. It's over.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah, I don't have any more left in me. And then there are characters that can be written by different authors very easily, and then there are certain characters that can only, for some strange reason, be written by that particular author.
Well, it all depends on the voice.
Yeah.
You know? If
Yeah.
that voice isn't there and it doesn't sound right, then
Yeah,
what's the
like
point?
nobody could write Howard the Duck besides Steve Gerber because Howard the Duck sort of was Steve Gerber.
Yeah.
But then
We had S for half a second.
I
don't know. What
know.
happened. It was like, it's at oh.
Peace in, peace out.
I was so excited.
What was that? I missed it.
Yeah,
it was SJ for half a second. He might come back. Who knows? I brought him on stream and I was about to say hi to him, and then immediately he just popped back off. I was like, oh, okay.
If he wants to tag in, that's cool because I'm gonna have to boogie in about 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Boogie. Yeah.
Oh man.
We always have people just drop in, drop out, so that's totally fine. If anybody's got to go, I totally understand. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this because I feel like
me too.
I feel like IPs are sometimes sacred and sometimes almost like a necessary, like depending on what you're exactly looking at. There's aspects of it that are just kind of a necessary evil. So like I don't world build like a lot of writers and a lot of people that I know because I generally am not trying to make something that's going to sustain past whatever specific story I'm trying to tell. So I don't get into, I've got a girl character. I'm not getting into who her, second aunt twice removed is unless it's going to be something relevant to that specific story. And I don't care what brand of cakes she wants to eat or what school she goes to unless it's relevant to this specific story.
Right.
Right.
Well, I mean that's the difference between.
Hey guys.
Oh wait, what's up? Welcome.
Hey, SK.
Welcome.
Sorry, I usually have the camera on, but my internet is, and I think Shae knows, my internet from Australia is really horrible. So if I put video on, I drop out a lot. So I'm thinking no video today for me.
That is totally fine. No problem.
That's okay, man.
We can hear you just fine. No, that's good.
Yeah.
Look, I've actually got an interesting story to tell you guys, and I actually want to jump in a little bit earlier just about IPs. So this is earlier this year for Wordsmith. I was actually lucky enough to get approached by an animation studio who basically wanted to pick up, and this is pre-COVID, so unfortunately, everything's on hold now. But prior to that, they were really interested to pick up Wordsmith. And so the one thing they wanted from Wordsmith, and this actually will make a lot of sense to a lot of creators and writers out there, they wanted the Bible. And many people who create books never ever write the Bible. And so I asked the question, what you want in the Bible? Basically, we want to know everything. We want the entire world built. We want to know this person's dogs, cats, sisters, brothers, mom, dad, everything through. Mainly because when you build, if an animation ever takes off, let's say, they want to be able to pull any tangent storyline in. Mm-hmm. So writing a Bible, although it's not instrumental to the story, it took me about 2 months to write the entire Bible out. And it actually forces you to think about stuff that you probably wouldn't think about as you're developing this IP. But once it's done, it actually makes your writing for all future issues a lot better. Because I'll give you the hypothetical. Like one of the characters, Celia, in my story is an orphan. So by her being an orphan, you can start off see she has a bit of abandonment issues. So with that, when you start writing, when somebody leaves the room, she starts getting a bit nervous. And it's all that really subtle cues that when you're building your IP up in terms of a Bible, it actually helps out with all your future writing. So if you've never done it, try writing a Bible. It's crazy amount of work, but if you believe in your series, it's well worth the time.
Yeah, it's just like it's like research, right? Like if I'm writing, it's like I remember reading 3 books about the Aztecs for a screenplay that I was writing. Mm-hmm. And you end up not using 99.9% of your research, but boy, it gives your story, your characters a spine. That
gives you confidence to write it.
Exactly.
Well, you know what the fuck you're talking about.
Exactly.
So that, that might actually be
I
what
think
they're
that's what we're
lacking.
talking about here. Is that I think when Tolkien said, why'd you spend so much time on this? Years and years. He says, you got to know what you're talking about. What are these people going to say? What are they going to refer to? Are they going to refer to
Right.
Gondolin? They're going to refer to Minas Tirith. Where does Minas Tirith come from? Why is
Right.
it there? Who are the people? Who are the Numenorians? Like, what are their myths? And now you've got this rich thing to refer to with your characters.
Right.
They write themselves now.
Right. It's like the same way. Like I'm writing about this bombed out city after a satanic apocalypse. I have to ask myself, what do these people eat? Where do they get their food? How
That
do
could
they
be a story in and of itself.
Exactly. But and the thing is I don't need to address that stuff in the story. The reader doesn't need to know. I need to know.
Well, I mean, both of you bring up an interesting. Another great IP is Warhammer 40,000, right?
Oh yeah.
So if I got hired to write something for Warhammer 40,000, I go, okay, there's a billion stories there, but like, what does a janitor do in the world of 40K?
Right.
And that in and of itself would probably be a very interesting story.
Absolutely.
Like for example, there was one. I don't know if you guys
Lots
follow
of hosing
40K,
out armor.
but there was they have a Dan Abnett writes his own little canon story in there called Gaunt's Ghosts, and they do short story compilations of his little mini universe within 40K, and one of them was guys who just go on the battlefield and pick up detritus and bodies.
Right.
No one ever talks about that in 40K, just the battles. But like, what would you do if you were cleaning up bodies after a battle and like gathering equipment? That would be a whole other story.
I'd have one of those grabby sticks, to pick up the wet things.
There was a great Star Wars story. It was in the Marvel Star Wars series. It got a lot of heat from the social justice warriors, and it was about the woman that patches Darth Vader back together again.
Oh, Dr. Afra.
Or assists. Yeah. Right?
She became a very popular character after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
When did she do this? Like after he got hurt initially, or in
No.
general?
Like it just whenever.
She's like his physician.
More like an assistant. Right? And so what happens is she becomes like a deranged fan. And she has this romance novel in her head that involves her and Darth Vader.
So she's in love with her boss.
Exactly. And so she starts collecting these little pieces of him.
Oh, wait, that's not Dr. Afra. That's
right.
That's the okay, yeah.
Yeah.
The story that reminded the SJWs that yes, Darth Vader's a fucking villain. Right, and they saw it, and that's the thing is they quite. I don't know if the inspiration were the Loki fangirls. I know that the Loki fangirls were very pissed off because they really did feel that it was about them. Oh, Loki's not evil. He's not bad. He's just misunderstood. Baby, that's because he's good looking. If Clearly,
he looked like Charles
you have ever read Norse mythology.
Yes.
No, do you want to know why? Okay, this is breaking from developing IPs and going straight into female logic. The reason that Loki is just misunderstood is because every woman ever in existence honestly thinks that they can save every troubled soul that has ever existed.
He'll change for me.
Holy shit.
He just hasn't met the right person. But
You're
if
the right
I
one.
love him the right way, then he'll change for me. Like, no, he's not going to, bitch. He hasn't changed for anyone else.
There it is.
Sorry, I had to. You started talking about women and thinking Loki was just troubled. Like, no, fuck that. He's
dropping truth
literally
on the
god of chaos. Like,
well, I mean, look, this is why, I suck at writing women, right? It's always difficult for me. Luckily, I know some
most
women.
people do.
So that goes to research. Like Stephen King, when his wife Tabitha was encouraging him to write Carrie. He was like, I don't know what it's like to be like a 16, 17-year-old girl, and his wife was like, you can ask me. I used to be one.
Yep.
Right, but that's that Star Wars story, man. it lit fires.
It
fire
broke
people's
people.
asses.
People were fucking pissed.
How old is
Frosting
this
at them out.
story? When
Yeah.
this dropped?
This
the
was
story?
like
2
was
years
this
ago.
one of the tales from Vader's Castle? Is that what it was?
Something
Was
like
that
that.
one of the IDW books that put? I don't know. The
it was-
artwork was fucking terrible.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah, the
But-
artwork was terrible.
Oh, the story was great. The script was fantastic. And, and finally there's a scene where she tells Vader, she confesses her love. And he just sort of looks at her, sort of half-lidded, and is like, this bitch is a psycho. And he runs her through with his lightsaber.
Bye, bitch!
Yeah. Get this piece of shit out of here.
Yeah. He's like, I'm the Dark Lord of the Sith. I ain't got time for your mental illness. Bye.
Right.
It's reminded everybody that Darth Vader is evil.
Yes.
This is the same dude that hacked down children.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Dude, does everybody forget who Darth Vader is?
Just misunderstood.
But Twitter went crazy over. Twitter went crazy over it. They were insane, mad about him being
evil.
evil.
They were. Yeah.
Well, you got to remember, these are people who don't have a concept of evil anymore. Everything's relative to them.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Just like Statistical Zero said, is people are afraid to write villains nowadays because they will be blamed for thinking them up as writers and releasing the ideas into the world for others to use. Here's the thing. There are evil people in the world. There always have been. There are people who just are terrible human beings. There is a lot of evil and a lot of unjust that happens. It doesn't matter that your fifis hurt every time you see something that is unjust. I'm dying right now because I'm seeing all the shit going on in our nation. It's unjust and ridiculous the way that a lot of this shit is being handled on multiple sides. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen and I get to pretend it's not real. So all of this, we have a villain, but we have to give him a redeeming quality. And as much as I loved the new Joker movie because it was
but you can't
very
even have
well done.
redemption without evil. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Right. And
yeah, you got to actually be bad.
Exactly. It implies a moral law to be redeemed by.
Exactly.
But that's
if you see the new Joker movie and you see how that was handled, while incredibly well done, while a very, very good display of the Joker and how he loses his mind and his insanity, entirely unnecessary because it took such a sympathetic view of the Joker. He is pure adulterated
evil,
like chaotic evil. He's not just evil. He wants to watch the entire world burn, not just people against him, everybody. He wants everyone to suffer and burn.
Well, it's like all these romantic depictions of Dracula, right?
Right? Like, no, he's trying to kill people.
Dracula doesn't die for love. Dracula doesn't love. He is pure evil. And he has bad breath on top of it, so...
There used to be war photographers who went around. They took pictures of the bodies and the atrocities of war. And as a writer, I think that what we do a lot of times when we write a truly evil person or a truly evil character is we're just putting the lens on what the human soul, the human spirit is capable of when it comes to being evil. And I think that's part of the job as a writer to paint things. I know there's suspension of belief, and I know that you have a fantasy world, but sometimes you have to paint stuff realistically so that you get the effect of, you can't have a hero without, it was said just a while ago, you can't have a hero that saves everyone without having that person that he's saving everyone from. And that can be
what is light without dark.
Yeah,
exactly. But I like the concept. I love the concept of the evil person, though, thinking he's not evil. And I love that concept that you're always the good guy. You can imagine all the people who commit all these atrocities. They're thinking, hey, look, I'm doing it for the greater good, or I'm doing it for me, for my tribe, or whatever. And writing it that way, that the villain thinks he's doing it for the great. Like even the Joker movie, he was killing. He killed the first two people because they were harassing somebody else on the train. If you remember that.
Yeah, and then they came after him. Yep.
Yeah. Even he was thinking, I'm doing this for the great, for good. So I love the concept that all villains are heroes in your own mind. And I think that's a really interesting trope, that if you can make it that he's not just pure evil or maniacal, but he's doing it because, like Thanos, he's doing it because what he thinks is right. Sure, he'll kill, he'll do whatever it takes, but he's the good guy in his own head.
I mean,
I love that.
Aren't we all the hero of our own story? Aren't
That's
we all
exactly
the,
right.
Yeah, that's
you
very
know,
true.
the main character in our own story? So of
That's
course
exactly right.
it would make sense that the villain would be the hero of their own story. You know?
Hail George in the chat, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Like
Jason
Jigsaw.
brings up a good point. Look at Doctor Doom.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
my favorite comic book character of all time.
Oh gosh.
Nice.
Terrible.
Doom says Doom.
So
Right?
says Doom.
Well, this is the thing: is I'm not saying that we shouldn't have evil characters that think that they're doing right. What I'm saying is they don't need to be portrayed as sympathetic, like a sympathetic creature to the audience.
No.
So they can. The thing is if the people that were doing the evil did not believe that they were doing the right thing, eventually their resolve would wear out. They wouldn't be able to recruit the people that they recruit because they get other people to believe they're doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
However, I'm supposed to be seeing this story from the viewpoint of the hero. I'm supposed to be seeing this from the viewpoint of the average Joe. I'm not seeing the viewpoint from the viewpoint of the fucking villain. And every single time that they say we have to show the villain and they need to be somebody that you can relate to, well, I don't want to relate to him. The Joker is criminally insane.
Yeah.
He has no morality. He only wants destruction and chaos. He wants the entire motherfucking world to burn, okay?
Nope.
If you remember the most iconic, amazing portrayal of the Joker, he made a pencil disappear in a dude's eye. Okay?
Yep.
He said, "Let me show you a magic trick," and then drove a man's head through a pencil.
Ta-da!
Like, I don't need to relate to that.
Nope.
I'm going to be writing the literal devil, right? Old Scratch himself, right? Very intimidating. At the same time, I know what angle I'm going to be coming at. You know how I'm going to be approaching him. Vanity. This is about me. So all I have to do.
In Unhinged, I agree. This is why Heath Ledger's Joker was so well done. Is because he wasn't relatable. The shit that he did to other people was fucking vile, and it turned your stomach. And the fact that he would do a magic trick
on that face,
and then he'd laugh after it, and he'd be like, "Well, is everybody doing well?" And you're like, "You just murdered a man with a pencil." And it's like he was okay with it. He was okay with who he was.
Well, it's like when I hear people saying that that Dr. Doom is noble, right? I'm like, no, he's regal, but he's not
He
noble.
commands respect when he enters a room. That's what he does.
Authority. Yeah, authority. Like he's Dracula, right? But you know, this is somebody.
Well, he's also a monarch, you know, and at the end of the day, they do say that his people love him because he takes care of them.
Right.
Doesn't mean he's not.
Dictator.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean that he's not a dictator. So I mean, I think that's a little bit different. He's not exactly
the same way that the Hitler Youth felt about Hitler.
Absolutely.
They all thought that he was amazing and he was Papa Hitler until they grew up and learned about the shit he did. Because what he did for them.
Yep.
And this is if you ever go to Munich, I think it's still going on. There is a Jewish like a Holocaust museum in the center of fucking Munich.
Yeah.
Like where this shit went down. They have a Holocaust museum. And at the end of that Holocaust museum, on a tape on repeat, they had a whole bunch of people that they interviewed from the Hitler Youth.
Yeah.
And they interviewed them as adults. And they basically were like, tell us your side of the story. And they said, we all thought that he was a savior. We all thought that he was going to be the person that was going to bring Germany back to its glory days, and he's like, and they say we had no idea what he was actually doing.
Okay, I don't know about that one. I'm not going to give him that. I'm not going to give the German people that out.
So depending
my
on
father,
who you want to talk to, if you're talking about 9-year-olds, 12-year-olds who were really, really young when this shit was going on, they probably didn't know because most of them were taken from their homes.
That's just to say, like Hitler came out of a vacuum, which he didn't.
Well,
yeah, he did.
Well, here's the thing. I think
nothing exists in a vacuum.
Let me speak on this real quick. My father was in the Hitler Youth.
My grandfather was a black shirt.
Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting.
This shit just got real.
Yeah. The vast
we're kind of connected to our grandfathers.
Through fascism, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have the fascist connection.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Look,
Jesus.
The vast majority of the German people didn't know the depths of the depravity of the Nazis because it would have been bad for morale. It would have been terrible for morale. That's why they had a special squad, the Einsatzgruppen, that was sent into Poland to commit atrocities and to wipe out the Polish aristocracy. In order to find the people for this special unit, they went to the prisons because they knew what sociopaths were. And they decided, you know what? These guys, these killers without consciences, let's use these motherfuckers. And so they went to the prisons and they approached these guys who were like, how'd you like a job? It wasn't the regular army that was committing these atrocities. They didn't know about what was going on with the concentration camps. If they had, I'm not saying that maybe their superior officers didn't know. The SS sure as shit knew. But your average, like in the field soldier,
the army knew. We have evidence of Manstein carrying out those orders in Crimea. We have evidence of them following those commissar orders and executing political officers in the Soviet Union. They knew. Some of these army officers knew. They just put it on Hitler.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not denying that. What I'm saying is that your average private.
Oh yeah.
There's
who
no
cares?
way.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a like one of the stories that really blew me away was there was a POW camp. I think it was in Virginia where they shipped all of the German soldiers and they treated them very, very well because
they're working on farms.
Yeah. And they were feeding them beer and everything, and they wanted to make sure that they were treating them well so that our POWs would be treated well. And when the war was over, and they had this footage of the liberation of Dachau and Auschwitz and these other hellholes, they brought it and they showed it to these guys, and they were like, "Look at this! This is what you were fighting for." And you know what they did? They laughed. They burst into uproarious laughter. Why? Because they thought it wasn't real. They were like, "Do they expect us to fall for this shit?" And the guy who was the CEO of the camp, right, at first was like furious, like, "Big motherfuckers, look at this shit." Right. And then suddenly he was like, "Oh, fuck.
They don't actually know.
They don't actually know, but they're going to know. And when they do, holy shit, it's going to rock them to their core." So... yeah.
Also, one of the things, I'm not really disagreeing, but what we're talking about here when we're talking about characters who are, as ES brought up, they think they're the good guys. Not necessarily you think you're a good guy or bad guy, is that we're talking about a kind of physics here, right?
Yeah.
So you're asking the characters, what are their physics? And is it a metaphysics that says, for example, Christianity? How is that moving you to a natural conclusion? Or is it Darwinism? Is it the Enlightenment? So, for example, if we're looking at something like Nazi Germany, what is the physics that's moving the German people? Well, it's blood. Okay, so if you're looking at blood and you're looking at Darwinism, if you're looking at Darwinism, then you're going to have a natural trajectory and a deduction from that that's going to end in a certain way.
Absolutely.
And that's why I get a little annoyed when people say, "Well, how could they know?" Well, there's enough history to know that certain, let's call it certain presuppositions and morality taken a priori is going to end in a certain way. It's going to move things to a certain direction.
Absolutely. At the same time, I'm very happy that Hitler never won a majority.
Let's take Brian's Demons book, for example. If you have, like, gods up there, he's doing his thing, he's being God. Satan comes along, he says, well, why should he have all the power? He goes up 10% of the demons, I forgot how many it is, 10% of the angels to go to war against God, but it's basically just class warfare. They have, we don't. And that's what moves the story of the Bible. And it's what moves.
Gary, I don't want to be moved by God. I want to be moved by my will.
You just made the devil sound like the original Karen.
Yeah, Karen.
If you've read Paradise Lost, Milton's sympathies are with the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he intended that or not.
Milton's a Promethean.
Yeah, but
he's
what
an
I'm saying,
Enlightenment guy. Of course, it's with the devil.
Yeah.
The devil saw himself as a good guy. He was going against the power.
Yeah, well, it was like a jilted lover. He's like, I'm your number one, and then wait a second, now I'm not your number one. Now, wait, these talking monkeys? I'm supposed to bow down and kiss their asses? Fuck you!
So that's why he hates us all. Jesus.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then we get
wondered
to
why he was being such a prick.
You get the difference between liberation and freedom.
Right.
There's a difference between the two.
Right. And yet at the same time, there's that wonderful scene where he's viewing Adam and Eve, and he's just awed by their beauty. He's like, oh, they're so beautiful. It's a shame I'm going to have to fuck them up.
Did you notice that he's getting smaller and smaller all throughout the poem?
Yeah.
He even becomes a little frog.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah.
Starts out with a Titan.
Yeah.
And then gets smaller and smaller until he's a little dwarf to fit into Pandemonium.
Yeah. I've read Paradise Lost so many times. It's gonna be a resource for me in writing Nine Devils for sure.
Well,
we have another interesting question from Unhinged. She says, "Don't some people create their villain first and then their hero?"
Why not? I mean, if you have a bitchin' idea for a supervillain, like, our buddy Lit Dev, who's got Dr. Afro, like, if you've got an awesome idea for a villain, roll with it. See if you can come up with a superhero to counterpoint it.
Yeah.
See if you can make a superhero that feels as authentic as your kick-ass supervillain.
Yeah.
Because, if you have, like, this supervillain character in your head, and you focused on that, all your energy's gone into that, you've kind of refined him a little bit, right? You go to make a superhero to combat that, he comes across as kind of one-dimensional and hollow because you ain't put that much time into him. That's the challenge. Can you write that superhero with the same intensity and, my favorite word, verisimilitude, as your supervillain?
Right. Like in my case, I'm creating my my heroes is coming after the villains. I have my villains first. And then I'm thinking to myself, okay, we're dealing with radical evil here. Radical evil. Well, that's when I was like, well, what do I need? I need a barbarian. I need somebody that's chaotic good. I need somebody that's going to be able to get nasty with these fiends. And even though he's on the side of good, isn't going to be well-mannered, as it were. And it's somebody that's going to be a hero that's going to maybe not have a problem being a little bit ruthless.
I just want to hear Brian say nasty over and over again.
Nasty.
Oh, God.
That boy is nasty. Speaking of which, I got a boogie. Folks, this has been a pleasure.
Always fun talking to you,
Brian.
Luke.
We'll talk about Mandalorian soon.
Go
guys.
get my 6-gun gorilla delivered.
Definitely.
Have a good one.
I know. I need my 6-gun gorilla.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Now, son.
See you, Brian.
Take care, people.
Later.
Peace, love, and soul.
See you.
Go back 6-gun gorilla. I'll make sure to update it into the video description.
So, Shae, what's the next question?
I'm about to boot your ass, Will, is what the next question's going to be. Will Shae boot Will? Possibly.
Mm-hmm. Where's the magic 8 ball? Signs point to fuck yes.
Do they still make Magic 8 balls?
Yeah, dude, they do. Like they'll make them. They'll make them in all kinds of different shapes now too. It's not even just like a Magic 8 ball. Saw one the other day that was like a giant dice, and you picked it up, and thing was on the bottom.
Magic
This is
8
the
ball.
future.
And then mood rings. That was another one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. So the one that I
don't know if they still make those.
The 8-ball-esque thing that I love hate has a little like it's like a little pipe with a ball on the end that has a magnet in it, and then there's a
You can
little
smoke
like
it?
swirly thing. Yes, that's it. There's a
And
swirly
it's
thing.
cut with baby powder.
I'm going to. Oh my gosh! I'm gonna mute you. It's got a little base, and on the base it'll say like yes, no, maybe ask again later, and all that kind of stuff. And it has magnets all around for each of those answers. And you hit the ball, and then you just let it go until it eventually settles on one of them. It takes a million years for it to decide where it's going to settle. And every time you're like, oh, it's going to settle there, it'll start that like really crazy thing with the magnets when you get opposing ends that push. Because I think in between each, it has like an answer that is the right polarity for it to hit. And then right next to it has two magnets on the other side that are the opposite. So it pushes it away. And so you just sit there and you're like, oh, it's going to happen. And all of a sudden it'll be like, boom, boom. You're like, oh, son of a bitch, it's still going. It literally, I've hit one in an office, walked away, vacuumed the entire office, come back, and it was still going. I was like, come on, I need my answer. Just sat there for another like,
hang on. Yeah.
10 minutes. I was like, give me my fucking answer, you asshole. Like 20 minutes later, it'll be like, try again later. I'm like, no, fuck you.
The only correct life decisions.
It's the Internet Explorer of getting clairvoyant advice.
Right, it's terrible. It's absolutely hideous. Don't ever use them unless you want to piss somebody off. So I'm gonna send one to Will, obviously.
Obviously.
Thank you. I mean, you bought me something. That's nice of you.
Aw, I didn't buy shit for you yet.
Well, Shae,
Don't
you're
get too
you're kind of a girl. What were those things those girls used to make in high school where they would like flip them around and they would sing
Fortune
a song?
tellers.
Is that what they're called? The
Kind
piece
of
of
a
paper.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I think I still have the muscle memory of how to fold one of those fucking things up.
I used to see girls like singing
Maybe.
songs and like doing different things and
They
like
were
trying to get
different
an
colors.
answer.
They had different colors on each like pedal, I guess you
It
call
had
it.
different colors and
I
different
guess.
numbers. And then it
Yeah.
said yes, no, maybe. And now you're making me make one because you said it.
What's the song? Like, what song would you say when you were clicking
don't
it
know
Better
around?
you than
song?
me.
I don't
Better
know.
you than me.
I'm sorry. I used to see girls doing that, and they were like talking about their boyfriend or like whatever. Like, does he love me? Blah 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 blah. You know,
Yeah, there's no song.
I thought it was something
you
arcane.
literally spell out. You have like a color to be like yellow. You're like YELLOW.
You know,
Pick a number. 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Pick another number.
Oh, damn. Wow.
I'll just get my cootie shot. You know, when you like, I don't know. I remember how to make the cootie shot.
Circle, circle, dot, dot, dot.
Yeah, there you go. Circle, circle, dot, dot, dot.
And writing prose has descended into second grade. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're enjoying the show. Thank you for joining us.
You got to start
Please
somewhere.
like, share, and subscribe. This is what's happening.
I mean, that's actually kind of part of the natural
Hey,
flow of all these episodes.
See, here I am just sitting here being calm, drawing. I'm not the one causing the chaos this time, surprisingly.
I know. Somebody let
who's
Shae have
causing
a cider.
What now?
Let Shae have a cider. That was the downfall.
I'm in the middle.
Okay.
So I'm the body that's drawing you all around me. So since I'm in the middle,
Oh, okay. Are you gravitational?
I am the heavenly body that's drawing you all in my Newtonian fold.
Wow.
Not a fan.
Did you really just refer to yourself as a heavenly body?
Something like that.
There's a verse for everything.
Adonis, as some would say.
Okay, so
Oh,
what
okay.
is-
Wow. So we just went right into narcissism. Cool.
Somewhat.
How are you, Narcissa? You got a mirror right there? Huh?
Yeah, right here.
Oh,
I'm actually staring right at my picture.
Of course you are.
I'm not looking at Shae, not looking at you.
It's a screensaver.
Not looking at
do
Jerry.
me a favor, Will. Go to a local pond, look at your reflection, and try to kiss yourself.
Okay, I will do.
Thank you.
I've already tried that. That's why I have brain damage.
Oh shit! Don't ever fold a fortune teller when you're slightly drunk. This is not going well.
With your cider?
A little bit of cider.
What? Kick Luke. Shut up. Whatever, Jason. What? Why? Why do I need to be kicked?
Because something. I don't know. Okay,
Because
so here's a question to get back on track while I finish making my fortune teller. Oh, I do have colored pens.
See, they
Hey,
said in
I'm
the chat there
super
usually was a song or a rhyme.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, because you're not a girl,
as a
that's
sort
why.
of girl. As a sort of girl, I don't know any song or rhyme.
Pseudo girl.
Like girl adjacent, okay? Like I got the hardware, I just don't really got the mentality for it.
Girl Ultima.
Oh my gosh. Okay. What do you guys think is the hardest part of developing your own IPs? Yeah, that's right. I said it. Well, I make a fortune teller.
All right. Sorry, I had to reply to a compliment. I'm blushing. The hardest part of creating an IP?
Yes.
Probably
your own.
Getting it out there and telling the truth. You know, not wanting to change something just because I think it should go this way when the story clearly feels like it's going another way, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like, you know if you're writing something and you feel like it's supposed to happen this way. You feel it, you don't necessarily want it to go that way, but you feel it's supposed to happen this way. But it'd be cooler, and I'd like it better personally if it went that way, but it doesn't feel right when you write it out.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that would be the hardest part, is just staying true to what the story is instead of trying to jazz it up and make it cool.
Okay.
And I think there's something to be said for that. That if you're going to do something, and if you're going to come up with what's motivating this world, there's going to be a natural reduction to that. And if that reduction is going to be something horrifying, you have to have the kind of courage to follow that down, because it might not be politically correct, it might be offensive, but like I said to Brian, or Michael, sorry, it's late.
You just don't know anymore.
If we're talking about, for example, the things that move people, like in Germany, it's being moved by blood. In Darwin, there's going to be a natural trajectory to that kind of physics. And if you're telling a story and it has these conditions and these parameters, it's gonna play itself out, and you have to have the courage to play itself out without somebody saying you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're a big. I'm sorry, that's what is going to happen.
Yeah, you can't be afraid of what they're going to say. You just have to tell the story.
Right. If you're telling a story about racism, there's going to be some nasty people saying some nasty things. Or if you have a nation that's motivated by that, for example, like Germany, I'm sorry, there's going to be some horrifying thing. That's the reduction of it.
It's a funny thing about bad guys; they do bad shit.
Exactly, and it might horrify you.
They're villains for a fucking reason. You got to be able to go dark with them and not lose the plot, and not go overboard. But you got to get the point across that these are bad people. So you get that contrast. There has to be a contrast between the hero and the villain. Otherwise, you kind of lose something.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
If we're telling a story about sadism, well, where do you go with that? How far do you go with that? You know what I'm saying?
True.
Like, what will people do to get their jollies?
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to get dark real quick.
Right. I think getting people to read it.
Exactly. Making it not suck.
I think for me, I think it's because of the creative process. Part of the creative process that I'm in is because, if you're working by yourself, like I am, you're the sole person who's going to put out any information on your IP. So perception is reality. So having people perceive your IP the way that you want to perceive it is right now it's kind of difficult for me. So I think that's a hard part, because you put out a piece of information that totally steers people in the wrong direction without realizing it, or it seems to me you can. And I'm trying not to do that. I want to steer them in a certain direction and kind of build as I go, to kind of build the IP up.
Right.
Get that.
I I think a hard thing is writing universally, because you're trying to, it's impossible to write without having your own bias in there, at least initially. And that's why you have to go through so many different editors. But everybody has, all the way down to the most minuscule, minute little detail, everybody has their own experiences, their own upbringing that kind of dictates how certain things are going to hit or how certain things are going to be received. And it's really hard to write something and not have that be the predominant kind of theme going through, which is, well, where I grew up, if somebody said this is what it meant. But where somebody else grew up, like where Luke grew up in Florida, he's not getting that same experience that I got from fucking the burbs of Salt Lake City. Nobody in Salt Lake City is identifying with somebody who grew up in fucking Florida. Like, that's not a thing. Totally different world. You know what I mean? And so being able to try and write where it's universally and you're not just getting pigeonholed in your own little sections, because there's things that you might not even know are things that only happen to you and the people that you grew up with.
Right, because it's just your experience. It's what you know of the world.
Right.
Well, I hear you.
Well, I'm referring mostly to the marketing side of it. You know, marketing your IP so that the story you write comes out. The story that you, the idea that you're marketing reflects the story that you wrote.
Yep. And that's tricky. That's where, honestly, for me, that's where having a good PM is. If you're not strong in marketing, you're not strong in merchandising and stuff like that, what would you do in any other business? If you had a small like shop, a mom and pop shop, and you sold specific items, but that's what you did and you weren't really strong in marketing, you'd hire somebody to be a PR firm for you to go and put it out there to start, how do I advertise this appropriately? Like, who do I advertise this to get the result that I'm wanting? You would hire somebody who's better at that than you are. Just like as a writer, I am not going to draw any of my shit. Nobody wants a Shae drawn comic. It is.
Oh, you might be surprised.
Okay, nobody that I want to give me money for a Shae drawn comic wants a Shae drawn comic.
Not where I was going with that, but like where your mind's at.
Realist here. I don't need a bunch of people who are going to throw money at me because I'm a chick. I want somebody to want to buy what I'm putting out there because what I'm putting out there is good. Like, to the point of thinking of making a pseudonym that's going to have a different male specific name. So if it doesn't do well, it's because the product sucks. It's not like, I don't do well because it's obviously a girl who wrote it.
Just on the marketing side, and this is actually, brings some really interesting points. So not so much on marketing, but on pitching. So if you're ever pitching your IP, and I've been lucky enough to be able to pitch to certain people, the first question that always gets asked is, who's your target audience? And that brings it back to marketing as well. If you don't know who you're trying to sell your story to, you're behind the 8 ball to start.
Right.
Well, exactly. I know when I'm writing something, I'm trying to sell it to me and people like me.
Oh, which is fine, which is absolutely fine. But you have to know who your audience is. You have to think.
Absolutely.
If you don't know, and it could be yourself. It could be people like yourself that, you think, I'm writing this for me, and that's fine. But some people who, like, for example, a lot of books people write, well, this is more for a sci-fi adult audience, or you're looking for a teen audience. And then your IP has to be able to cover that demographic and understanding how that demographic thinks and wants to consume your IP. So it's it's a very different part of marketing and pitching. It's I'm actually terrible at it, and I'm still learning. But it's an interesting question whenever you say.
It's a multi-layered thing because you're dealing with people in society, and the way they interact with things. They can take a story a different way than you intended.
Yeah, like your Darth Vader one. All your Loki fanboys were, oh my God, that's me. But someone like me and you would go, hey, that's actually a pretty interesting take on a Star Wars story. But if the wrong audience reads it, they're gonna rip it to shreds, or they could hate you for it and all the rest of it. So you have to know to understand who you're writing for.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Audience, knowing your audience is important, and giving giving them what they actually want to read is important as well. Because if you don't have the audience reading what you're putting out, then you're basically just speaking into the void with nobody listening. Which, I mean, I suppose there's nothing wrong with that if you're just doing it for yourself. But if you actually want people to read it, you got to actually make something people want to read.
Yeah, but that's also an interesting point. Then, at what point do you give fan service as like you give what the fans want, or at what points do you want to challenge your audience? And as when you're creating this IP, when you're creating this world where people get invested in, it gets really touchy to say,
right,
hey, do I just give you what you want to hear, the happy ending, or do I want to challenge you to say, hey, guess what? The story is going the way I want the story to go, not how you imagine it. So
absolutely. What is the name of that book series? I can't remember. The main character's name is Both. Anyway, the author wrote like 3 really good books, and it's kind of like a Harry Potter clone type fantasy story. No, oh damn it!
Game of Thrones season 8.
No, there's like a magic academy, and he's like a traveling minstrel. And anyway, the dude wrote 3 really good books, and he got really involved with like his message boards. And now he's having trouble finishing the book series because there's been so many like fan theories. It's like a minefield of him for him to try to finish the book without stealing somebody's idea. I'm not exactly sure where I was going with this. Something somebody said reminded me of that, and not being able to finish.
Correct. So that's back to like say the Game of Thrones season 8 type idea, or even the where your IP becomes kind of hijacked away from you. So that's where when you're pitching to your audience, do you challenge your audience with your story, or do you give them what they want to hear? And I think that's where, and I know this has been analyzed to death, but where Game of Thrones season 8 really let the series down, it was basically, let's just end it. Let's just give them what they think they want, and boom, 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 story's over. And I think that's a big letdown for fans, where you just give them the easiest story, not the most challenging story.
Well, you're not giving them any kind of payoff. Like, we spent 7 seasons following these characters, and then you just kind of throw all of that character development right out the window. And for what?
Big paycheck.
Hey, Scott.
What's up,
welcome.
Scott?
Hey, Scott.
Hello.
What's going on, guys?
Not much. Talking all about developing IPs and not writing shit stories.
Yeah. Speaking of shit stories, Rise of Skywalker, Unhinged Entertainment brings up.
Hold up. I see you're too quick, Luke. Stop reading the YouTube chats because it takes a second for it to show in StreamYard.
I don't know what you guys. I just turned the YouTubes off, man.
Yeah, I leave it on because as a host of a stream, it's usually good to be able to respond, and it's much easier to respond in YouTube than it is in StreamYard.
I'm glad I caught this because I'd forgotten all about it, and I just turned on YouTube and I saw it, like, oh shit, that was well, you should it's priorities, But
I always take it for Scott forgets me.
As much as I love the topic of character, that you guys talked, it was last week, right?
I think it was a couple weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. You're right, because I thought about a lot, because there was a lot of in the DM group. There was a lot of talk about it. This developing IPs topic is one that is very near and dear to my heart, especially recently. And the 2 unique situations that I've gone through. And both of them are amazing situations, but they couldn't be further apart. My 2 books that I've got are Door Kickers and Peregrine. Door Kickers is absolutely an experience based. It's got a lot of my personal experience in it, and it's got a lot of things that I know a lot about in. And it's something that I am the the buck stops with me when it comes to that IP. So if there's ever a compromise, it's a compromise I've decided it's one that's worth making versus Peregrine, which is absolutely a team environment. And, the creation is not just one person's, it's a group collaboration, and she's changed a little bit as we've added team members, whether it's for hire folks or people who actually have equity stakes within the property. So I was thinking about this a lot before this topic came up in the group, but since it's come up, it's definitely something I've given a little thought to, and I didn't get to hear a whole lot before I jumped into the chat, but I'm really looking forward to going back and listening to this whole stream.
It's been a good one so far.
I appreciate
Guys,
that.
I've got to run. Sorry to ditch on you, Scott. Sorry, but look, it's been really fun, and really thanks for having me on, Shae.
Absolutely. I hope that we can get you on again. And if you haven't already, go and check out Terra Olympus. It is phenomenal.
Yeah, it looks great.
I don't know. Is Wordsmith still active?
It's not, but Volume 3 is coming out in the next couple of weeks. So we're just starting. I mean, not a couple of weeks, sorry, a couple of months. So look out for it. I'll send the images out when I start building it up.
Absolutely. So Wordsmith is one of my favorite sleeper hits that I got from SK. It's insanely well written. I still need to read book 2. I'm savoring it because book 1 was so good and made me so happy. So I wanted, the next time I read an indie comic that lets me down, I plan on picking up SK's book 2 of Wordsmith, and I'm going to read that. And I actually make an appearance because he's awesome and he drew me in. Thank you so much for coming, S. You're amazing. You're one of my favorite people to have on.
Thanks, guys.
That's one of the best.
Good talking to you, S.
Later.
Yeah, nice to meet you, man.
Later.
That's one of the best things about CG is you can really just reflect your reality in your books, whether it's if you got a background character that you just want to put one of your friends in, you can just kind of throw that reference in.
And let me just go ahead and say this. He did it without me saying anything. All of a sudden, he just sends me a panel and goes, "Anyone look familiar?" And I was looking at it and I was like,
well,
I'm not being narcissistic, right?
The funny thing is I've never even considered putting myself in one of my books, like the old Hitchcock kind of cameo type deal. But the other day, a couple of weeks back, I was talking with Doug, our artist on Peregrine, and he had drew a guy with a hat, like a baseball hat, sitting at a bar. And I started saying, "Hey, the hat's not right," and he's like, "What do you mean?" Because he's an amazing artist. So anytime a hack writer like me decides to criticize his art, he's gonna nail me down exactly what I mean, right? And I don't know how many times he's like, opened a drawing share and then explained to me through his drawing why he's correct and I'm not correct. So it's kind of funny. And I concede every time. But anyway, so I had said, well, the hat doesn't look right. I mean, because you know how a lot of comic artists will square up and make a sharp corner here at the corner of a bill, like just a sliced versus a tapered. And so I was just pointing that out to him. He's like, well, and I was like, I was having a hard time explaining it to him. And I took a picture of a selfie, and he said, "Hey, do me a favor." And then he said, "I'm going to go ahead and just use you as the reference for this character. You should be in your book." I'm like, all right, that's cool.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Okay. Well, and it's such it's always one of those. Whenever you see the drawing tiers, and I always see them at $300+, and I'm like, damn, I wish I had the money because it would be fun. Every now I see somebody actually just be like, "Hey, I added you into my comic because you've been such a huge support, or because you seem nice, or because you have an interesting look, so I used you."
Well,
and you get to see it, you're kind of like, "Aw."
Yeah, it's humbling, right?
Awesome.
Yeah, the second it happened in Wordsmith, I was like, "Thank you. You didn't have to." And he goes, "You've been such a huge supporter." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna cry."
It's interesting that you mentioned the drawn in tier because we had 3 drawn in, be a thug. Basically, we had 3 thugs for Peregrine, and two males and 1 female, and that got me thinking, I was like, well, those are kind of key, well, not key characters, but definitely reoccurring characters that have more than one panel type deal. But I was like, you could easily do a book plus a drawn in, like a one-time draw in, guaranteed one panel. And you could do, instead of just doing 3 of them for a campaign, you could do like 10 of them. Or you could, depending on your story, you could even do more. But just drop the price point down to where it's, a little more accessible. You may not be a real character. You just may be a face in the background, but still it's cooler than having the name included in the, on the back page and thank you page or something like that.
Right.
And it's because that's one of the challenges when I'm looking at campaigns and I'm designing a campaign, which is different than IP, of course, but looking for those opportunities like that. But sorry to get off track, but.
Oh, we've been on and off track all night. Don't worry about it. That's
I already know with you, it's it's a free for all. But
it's not just with me. It's with me and cider. So I've already downed a tall boy.
Nice. What kind of cider are you drinking?
I
would never.
Red's Wicked Black Cherry.
Oh,
it
Wicked Black Cherry. Oh.
It has to be wicked because it's 8%, but I don't know. And
All
now
right,
I'm
man.
drinking
I like Wicked. Whatever works,
because
right?
why stop the party, right?
So
just begun.
Let me ask you guys. So because I missed out. So did you guys talk about developing your IP towards your passion and versus being critical as a creator and saying, well, I love this idea, I love this this IP, but I don't know how many other people out there are going to love exactly what I love. You guys talked about that?
So we talked around it, but you put a very fine point on it, and that's actually something that would be really interesting. So, how do you keep yourself from being overly narcissistic or overly protective of your own IP?
I've got the 2 IPs that I have that are out in the wild right now are Door Kickers and Peregrine, and they're very different from those kind of aspects. And
they really are.
Door Kickers is something that that was very much a passion project for me because it's developed over a decade inside my head, and it's got a lot of my personal experiences kind of thrown into it. But that being said, I recognized early on that two issues, right? With a gritty, realistic military title, it's going to automatically have a limited appeal, no matter if I put terrorists as the bad guys or if I put Lovecraftian horrors as the bad guy. Ultimately, that limits it. And then when I say it's a military and a horror comic, then that potentially could either broaden the scope or it could narrow the scope. And a lot of times it probably is just a wash. I may lose some of the strict military people, but then in those that I lose, I gain on the horror side. And so, ultimately I kind of viewed that as a decent trade-off. But the second thing that was that I identified going into it is just for gritty, realistic, you're automatically gonna, it's not like G.I. Joe where it was based on a toy. I'm basing it on dealing with special operations people in Afghanistan. So I'm going to have to dumb it down just to make it, doable as a comic. And then, oh, by the way, if I write it for me, nobody's going to understand it, because there'll be chock full of jargon. Shae, you know how it is with the military.
Yes.
It's
to the point that I don't know all the jargon. Someone will be like, "Oh yeah, da 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 da," and I'm like, "The fuck does that 3-letter word stand for?"
And so it takes a lot of energy to either be creative, have creative ways to get to, to make that part of the IP accessible to a broader audience. Whether it's the little editor notes in the panels as you go along, with the explanation for acronyms, and then like in Door Kickers, there's the specific this additional page in the back, which is essentially like a scan of the actual document that the team is using in the book. So
right,
that's cool.
For the X check, right? So, originally I had to what each thing in the checklist meant. But then I was like, well, this is just way too cumbersome because like almost every other panel was getting a little note at the bottom of it. And so and so I just tried to be creative. I was like, well, what if I just, made a real one, a real X check that's got everything on it, execution checklist. See, there I go again with my acronyms. And by the way, an acronym, just in case you guys don't know, isn't like FBI. That's not an acronym. It would only be an acronym if you said it FIBI.
Yeah.
You have to. It has to make a new word when you.
Yeah.
But anyway, so like so I took the actual X check that a guy would have had in the planning, and he would memorize it, and then probably would stuff it in his pocket, to have as a quick reference on the mission. I actually did that in the back of the book, and it's got crinkles on the paper and a coffee stain on it and things like that, as if it were like one of the team members' own copy. So, and it's got national security caveats on it. So, Shae, you're probably the only other person that I know that actually knows what all the caveats might mean on there. So it's I try to throw a little bit of realism in there,
Honestly, that kind of stuff, like I know that it's super specialized to people who have served in the military or close to people who served in the military and have actually taken the time to know.
Especially in the TS/SCI world, where there's so much kind of, it's
gosh,
it's obscure on purpose. Anyway, the point I'm getting to is that with door kickers, I knew that I was automatically gonna, limit, my audience by just doing that kind of material. But I tried to do it in a fun way that made sense. With Peregrine, on the other hand, I wanted to make the most accessible and the most broad kind of IP that I could think of. I wanted it to be something that meant something, i.e., it's not just an arbitrary, here's a chick in a hot costume with big tits. She's going to save the world. It's not just that. It's like, she's hot looking, but, there's a lot of pathos behind, her development, both in her backstory, but also in the actual pages of the book. So, I know that is part of an IP that people are missing nowadays. It's that kind of real connection. And it's not that she looks like, she's probably a little shorter than you, Shae. So maybe you won't connect with her on the height,
I'm okay with it.
But
she's what I hope I look like, and I know I don't.
But it's never been about, connecting with a character based on their look. It's always through their emotional journey. And so that's an important part of the IPs that we develop, is that there is the ability to connect on a broader scale, not just in the aesthetic sense, but I think that's important too. But, in the story, as writers, we just have to make sure that we're, being genuine with our audience. So.
Well, and I think that, so something that I like, and I had the benefit of being able to read a little bit of Door Kickers prior to, it being released or anything like that. And one of the things that I really liked about Door Kickers is, while there is a lot of military specific jargon and a lot of like military specific storytelling, it doesn't feel, and this is coming from somebody who's been in the military for 14 years and couldn't be less military than anyone else who's been in the military for 14 years. Like I don't know how I made it this long. They still haven't found out I'm a dog in a suit. It's fine. But
you're doing good.
I'm doing okay. Like, they're pretty okay with me
until you make it.
Exactly. But the thing is like I have a really hard time with some of what goes on in the military, especially when you start talking jargon, you start talking about deployments, which I've never been on. I've been blessed with never having been deployed. So a lot of those things kind of go over my head. But the thing I love about Door Kickers is all of that stuff is still very accessible, despite the fact that I may not have had the same experiences as Scott. I still understand a large part of it. And then I get that little nod. And it's kind of like when you're an adult watching a Pixar film with your kid, right? Your kid is getting Monsters, Inc. at face value. You are getting all of the little the little tiny nods and the little tiny like, here's a little dig and a little dig, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's hilarious. And your kid doesn't know why you're laughing hilariously, but damn it, you are, because it's funny.
Well, so that's interesting.
You get the little Easter eggs.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not even about hiding Easter eggs. I mean, because most of the stuff that's in Door Kickers that she's referring to is not things that I'm going to put an Easter egg in here for Iraq vets or people who know about the Ukrainian conflict or whatever.
Right.
That would understand, right? Which are such a small number of my audience that ultimately it would be just kind of like, somebody
It
might
would
find
literally just be to stroke your own ego that you knew it was going on.
Exactly. It's like dropping name, so the most name drop. Okay, so you know how like when people know famous people, they like to drop the name, right?
Oh yeah.
So like the most
yeah.
Yeah. So the most name droppy thing that I've done in Door Kickers thus far is in the 10. You read the 10-page backup story, right? I sent you that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So in that, I name drop this really obscure fob in southeastern Afghanistan along the Pakistan border that only hosted like special operations teams and like CIA and all that kind of stuff. And like, some probably a very small number of people in the military, in the army that are active today even know about this place, right? It's called Skin. They just left the Russian name and they just took, it's an old, I guess, Russian outpost. And so, and if you Google it, you can find it. Like, if somebody's curious about what it is, they could Google and find it. But that's the kind of thing that only like SF dudes and SEAL dudes and things like that, if one of those dudes were to crack open the book, he would read that and he would know exactly what I'm talking about, and there is. And so to that end, I wanted a story that anybody within CG could, read and get some enjoyment out of. But I also wanted to throw enough of that kind of realism in there to where if somebody who's been there and done that reads it, they're like, this guy knows, his stuff. This is not, talking down to me. So it's
this guy's bullshitting.
Yeah, well, it's less about Easter eggs and more about the layers of complexity that's built in, and the more the more layers you can access to the story. Whether it's
you're being honest with your story, you're telling the full thing.
That's right.
I get it. Yeah,
and visually it's the same way too. I mean, like it's really important for me. The gear and the guns and things like that need to be right. And one of the struggles I had with both books, I'll be honest with you, I'm still having these struggles. To this day is when my artist decides to, take a shortcut and not draw something the way like the reference I gave. And it's, while it may be super important to me, unless I tell the artist, he won't know it's super important. Well, that gun looks like the same as the other gun. I was like, well, that gun is an HK 416, which is an AR platform, AR-15 made by Heckler & Koch. This other one is a SIG MCX, which is it's a variant of the AR platform made by 6 Hour. Anyway, that kind of thing is like, well, they look the same to me. They got scopes on them, they got silencers. That's looks like an M16. I'm like, oh God. It's not an M16, it's just, but unless I explain that to him, he's not going to know. And, that's one of those kind of things as a creator, is it important to my IP that everything is perfect? And I decided a long time ago that I need to get to a certain level and then I need to call it good enough. Because like for instance, when he does layouts and breakdowns, I don't know exactly what he's going to draw on that gun. So when he goes in physically and draws that gun in and inks it, that's the first time generally I see it. I'm like, he doesn't have a laser, on the front of the gun. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, he doesn't have it. I mean, I'm gonna have to live with that. The best.
Well, you also have to decide like how important is it really to the storytelling, and how much of it is just because you happen to know. Like if you happen to know because you're in the military, you've worked with that gun specifically, you know that this is how it is. That's all well and good, but if that is all, if it's really just being wholly accurate. If it's just you being wholly accurate to what the gun is, as opposed to something that actually helps and is pivotal to the story, you kind of have to decide
right
which is most important. Is
yeah,
it
absolutely. And you know, and so, you know, we have kind of, you know, in CG, most of the writers that I know in CG are also the project manager slash, you know, not too many writers are, you know, I've noticed a lot of tweets. Why don't artists hire writers as hired guns to make sure their stories are better or whatever on Twitter, which I thought was funny. But most of the writers like Clint and, you know, Von Klaus and a couple others, you know, those guys are the writer, but they're also the project manager of their projects and the publisher. And so you have to have two different hats. As a writer, you know, I need to be aware of what's important for my story. But then as a publisher, that's where you know, don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough, you know,
right?
Which is really what we're talking about, that compromise. And so that's been a big learning experience for me and Door Kickers. And so, you know, it's, you know, that's the part about developing an IP that, you know, a lot of times artists and creative people don't want to hear, you know, nobody gives a shit about that little detail that you're going crazy about. And, you know, from time to time, I mean, you know, and so, you know, and that's been a huge lesson for me to carry over to Peregrine, to make sure that, you know, I need to understand the difference between important things to, and sometimes I don't, you know, I mean, and when you're working with a group of people, you know, I found myself on a couple of times, okay, back down off the hill. This is not a hill to die on. You know, you've got to figure out, you know, where you really want to save your ammo for things. And generally speaking, you know, when it comes to aesthetics, that's never something that you should really, you know, unless something breaks the idea of what you want to do with the story and an IP, you know, like for instance, costumes, that's where I get kind of anal, but, you know, you know, there are a lot of the stuff in the background. I mean, I just can't, you know, like there's a scene in Door Kickers when he drew it. I was just like, man, this is absolutely not what I expected. This is not what I wanted. John Buscema, man.
Hold up. Put it back up, Luke.
I think my copy of that is at my parents' house, but man, I lived with that thing.
The original copy that my parents got me for Christmas one year.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
I got one of those too. Back in the mid '80s, I think.
Oh yeah. Just somebody in the chat, Statistical Zero brought up Big John Buscema.
Yeah,
it's commercial art, not fine art. Draw it and get it out the door.
Yeah,
I mean, man was amazing. Look at that. Look at Reed Richards. You know, like incredible.
Yeah. Yep, I am not capable of this. I don't have the patience for this. It's the reason I write. I write and I let other people draw the pretty pictures.
Well, there you go.
And it's easier that way.
I always joke that I must be an art failure because I have a degree in fine art, but I ended up writing comics, not drawing them.
So, and I've had a couple of people who have asked this, and I think it's hilarious, because a lot of people assume that because I'm a girl on the internet that is involved in CG and indie comics that I must draw. Surely. There's a reason that I do hand turkeys, because I think it's hilarious that everybody thinks I draw.
Is that how that got started? Okay.
That is exactly how. So the way that got started, for people who don't know the hand turkey story, total aside, I don't give a shit. It's my show.
Damn right.
The way that this got started is we were doing a charity stream for Carla and John Tornelli because they had a house fire and it literally burned the entirety of their house down, as well as everything that Carla uses to draw. That all got destroyed.
I remember hearing about that. Okay,
a shit ton of Grim Reaper 2 that she had finished was gone, and she had to redo basically that entire book. So we did a stream. Right, Shae and I put together a charity stream, and I got a bunch of amazing artists to agree to come on this stream. And if you donated any monetary amount whatsoever during the stream, you could pick an artist and they would draw something for you. The only person who got commissioned the entire night was me. And I was like, we had we had people like I had Wooly on, who did Elsa Dark, right? William Hazel. He was phenomenal. I had 6 a.m. comics. He's the one that started the fact that I ended up drawing, because 6 a.m. said, well, Shae, I just donated $5. I'd really like a hand turkey. You say you draw me in hand turkey. I want a night turkey hand turkey.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a Nightcrawler hand turkey for him to put back on his wall. And the next thing you know, 6 a.m. has tweeted out to everyone who donates during this stream, Shae will draw a hand turkey for.
Nice.
I drew 10 hand turkeys because of him.
Nice.
And then they became an ongoing tongue-in-cheek thing. And now people, every time I have somebody on Red Valkyrie Presents, asks, where's the Shae hand turkey tier? So it's now a thing, apparently. I still need to do my Peregrine hand turkey. Haven't done her yet, but it's going to happen. And I'm sorry, I'm going to make her, she's going to look fat because it's hand. And my hand is not conducive to curves.
So just to, I'll just say this.
Okay.
Not everybody appreciates your hand turkeys.
I know, most people
I think they're a total fucking waste of time, but you're cute and,
Aw, thanks, Scott. See, Scott's like Will. He's also abrasive like a Brillo pad.
Oh, okay. You just seem to attract abrasive people.
I do. Everyone feels like I maybe need to be knocked down a peg or two. Like I'm a little bit too happy all the time.
Don't you remember? It was back when
Is that what it is? Okay.
I think it was back when I was in Germany. Like, we were talking, and you showed me those hand turkeys. I was like, "What the fuck is this?" I mean,
they're terrible. They're terrible and horrible, and for whatever reason, highly requested.
But you know what's cool though is that people are not buying your hand turkeys because they're beautiful. They're buying them because they want a part of you, and they like your personality.
They want a connection with you.
Right. No,
exactly.
I think they're hoping that you'll chop off your own hand and send it to them in the shape of a hand.
Like pull a Van Gogh and like send an ear.
There could only be 2 of those.
Ooh, you know what? No. Like make a mold of your ear and like cast it in silicone and then send them one of those.
Send them an ear. Yeah, that's
gross.
Ooh, you know what? That's the next thing. You got to do a live cast of your hand and then do silicone hand turkey sculpture. And like have everyone.
No, because then someone's gonna use that for things that I don't want.
That's exactly where my mind went, and then I thought maybe we should not do the ear idea as well. So never mind.
You're developing IPs. I'm not developing the Shae hand IP. Okay, that's not a thing.
Hand turkeys are now your IP. Go with it.
Right.
Oh, gross.
Well, you're the one that's embracing it, not me. I don't embrace it at all.
You know what, Scott?
I'm just taking it.
We've got Jerry who's got ahead. I'm sorry, Jerry. You have a great night, hun. Thanks so much for coming out. You've been awesome.
Yep, y'all have a great night.
Good hanging out with you, man. Later.
Make sure you follow Jerry if you don't already. He's going to have some pretty cool projects coming out soon. So make sure that you follow him on Twitter so you know when that happens.
At Jerry Unbound.
All right.
Did we lose Will? What the hell happened to Will? Where you at, Will?
I don't know. Will doesn't care about us anymore.
Yes, I don't.
Well, obviously.
See? You and Scott need to talk because the two of you are like the same fucking person. You're both just horribly abrasive. And for whatever reason,
assholes.
I still want you guys all around.
What's more abrasive than saying that you're the same person just because you're not, they don't kiss your butt all the time?
Oh, you guys are terrible. Oh my goodness.
And by terrible, you mean great. I know.
I do. I absolutely do.
Hey, that's the reason why girls like her join the military, because they want to be like, mocked and especially,
Is that why?
I'm
pretty sure it was for the free healthcare, but okay.
Well, there's that too. But
the real reason is because you like abuse. That's the real reason.
Hey, I'll be honest with you. Every time I deal with the military healthcare, I'm like, well, this is the reason why socialism won't work.
Oh, same. Absolute same. Every time someone says socialist healthcare, I was like, check out TRICARE. Do you know how hard it is to get into an ENT?
it takes 48 hours just to be able to call for a referral.
Yes, thank you.
Like they give you the referral, and then you can't do anything for 48 hours.
Yes, you can't even schedule, and then by the time you finally call, the clinic has been booked out for 2.5 weeks.
That's exactly right.
And
we're
apparently,
dealing with that right now.
For people who don't know, Motrin is apparently a panacea. It fixes everything because you could go in there with a compound fracture and they will give you Motrin until you bitch and complain and come back a second time, and then they will finally give you something that will work.
Well, if that's not true, you should stop lying to everybody because just recently they gave me. I don't even know what this is.
It's gonna dox you, dude.
I don't give a fuck. It's got my name on it. I think.
Whatever.
Oh no! See, I'm not showing the prescription side. I'm showing you the drug labeled side. Yes, it's just acetaminophen. That's like Tylenol, right?
Yeah, acetaminophen is Tylenol. Yes.
I took 1 or 2, I think, and they gave me a whole bottle. How efficient is that?
Oh, they love to give me 800 milligrams of ibuprofen and tell me that should be enough to knock me on my ass. That's stuff that I've been taking since I was. They'll
diagnose you with a cold, send you to the pharmacy to get a cold pack, which you don't realize everything in there is over the counter, and then you wait for 3 hours at the pharmacy because COVID-19 has made everything drive-through, and you have to sit in your car in a drive-through wait to get a cold pack.
Yep.
And then, oh, by the way, because it's a cold and there are certain COVID symptoms, then you get diverted and you have to have a COVID test done on site prior to being able to go through so it's kind of like you get to the front of one line only to go to the back of another line that you have to go through before you can go to the back of the line again and to go through it.
You know what? Fuck this shit. I'll just stay healthy. I'm just going to stay healthy. I don't want to deal with none of that. That sounds awful.
Good job. Good job, Luke. I'm just going to stay healthy too. Let's see if my body is.
Well, I will say this for the military healthcare: none of our hair turns blue going to Army doctors. So,
fact. Sadly, I've tried. I wanted it to go blue, and they said the closest I could get was auburn.
I hear that's
wow. That's not even remotely close to blue.
It isn't, but it's a natural hair color.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, I like a natural.
That's right. It does have to be a natural hair color.
It does. It
doesn't have to
until
be
a baby is born with blue hair. I am stuck having auburn.
Well, that's why I like being freelance. That way I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Oh, that was the other thing I was gonna say. The last thing I'm gonna say, then we're probably gonna end the stream because it's been 2.5 hours, and I'm fairly certain we are not getting back on the topic of IPs anytime soon. But the other fun thing about military healthcare. So if you're ever gonna write military type anything, and you're gonna put the healthcare system in there, feel free to use this. They diagnosed my ex with an ear infection, and they gave him a prescription for an antihistamine. So here's the fun thing. They meant antibiotic. They gave him an antihistamine. 3 days later, I was in the ER, and they said if we had waited any longer, he probably would have gone deaf.
Damn.
Well, I mean, he's your ex, so what do you care? I mean,
I still care because I'm not a heartless, horrible banshee bitch. But
that's not what I read on Twitter in some Twitter DMs.
That's fair. That's fair. It's okay. Whoever is saying that I'm a horrible banshee bitch can continue to say it until they turn blue in the face because I could give 2 fucks less.
Or blue.
Or blue in the hair. Although I'm never going to accuse Luke of calling me a banshee bitch until he says it to my face, and then we'll have fisticuffs because that's how Vikings handle shit.
Damn right. And then after we're done, we'll have some fucking mead. Skull.
Yes, I love it. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. This has been super awesome. I'm going to give everyone who has left a chance to kind of sign off. So, Luke, go right on ahead.
You can find me on Twitter. I'm Death Metal Hero on Twitter, Instagram, and on YouTube. I've got old videos. I am working on new shit. I know I say that all the time, but I am actually working. I'm learning new editing software, so bear with me. I've got new videos coming of old interviews, and I've got ideas for new videos. But yeah, this is what I've been drawing this whole time.
Ooh, hold on. Let me get it up there. There we go. Oh, Black Flag Sniper.
Yep.
Look at that.
Yep, got a little bit of sniper action going on.
I like it.
Haven't done any drawing in a while. Not necessarily, but I mean, if that works for you, go for it. Yeah.
So Luke is drawing the porn side of Black Flag for anyone who might be interested.
I mean, there's like tatters of clothes, like the ripping. See?
Oh, okay.
Tatters. Probably.
I just saw a lot of rippling muscle, is what I saw, Luke.
Well, I mean, it's fucking Sniper. It's part of the character. Well, you just gonna sit there silent like an asshole and not back me up on this?
What?
Luke, I love it. It looks fantastic and is very obviously Sniper.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah.
Make sure that you follow Luke. You can check out the video description for his so follow him on Twitter for all amazingly fun stuff. I'm sure he's got some cool stuff in the works too coming up soon.
Vulgar rants and all kinds of fun things. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be great.
Come say hi. Yeah, it'll be great.
All right, Scott, go ahead.
I just want to know real quick, is it porn if you commission an artist online to draw a picture of your own character, like, having her clothes ripped off?
I think yes.
Oh.
I think that still counts.
At least it's a creator. It's actually no.
Might be just erotica. What's the difference between erotica and porn?
Erotica is a fancy way to say porn.
That's right.
Is it though?
It is. It's the same fucking thing. It just makes you feel better about it.
Yeah. Well, I think.
But I always felt like erotica was like classier.
Well,
it's classic porn.
I think the Japanese have it right, where they've got the official porn of their own IP. Talk about developing IPs is what eki, right? That's the and if it's not, it's hentai, right? So
hentai tentacles.
So on that note, you can find me on Twitter at mscottmccullough with no H on the end. Instagram with mscottmccullough with the H on the end. And then I've got they had not enough characters in Twitter, but I've got Door Kickers is still in demand. We just crossed 16,000, which is amazing. And I checked today and we're like 16,300, which I don't know where these people are finding out about Door Kickers from, but every time it grows, that just helps out that much more. We're going to print very soon. So as soon as I've got books ready to show off, I'm going to be showing that off. And Peregrine just crossed 40,000 the other day. So
nice.
It just keeps growing every day. And, I've just been very blessed that people have embraced both of these IPs that I've developed.
Absolutely.
I hope more people keep checking them out.
So I've got the links for both Peregrine and Door Kickers in the description, as well as Scott's Twitter handle. So feel free to follow him there. I will say, and despite being military, I'm actually somebody who hates military stories 99% of the time because they're either way too much like work or too much like things that people that I know have experienced. Like as much as I love Band of Brothers, I hate the fact that it plays every single Memorial Day weekend because it just brings me to tears every time. My grandfather was in the 101st. I can't handle it. After being in the military, I can't handle it. I know too many people have been blown up. I dislike it. Door Kickers, go back. And that's coming from somebody who isn't super huge on military, who isn't super huge on kind of going down those kind of darker paths. Go back, Door Kickers. I'm telling you right now, it is a phenomenally well-written story.
Now's a good time to get it because everything is still available. At some point in the near future, we're probably going to pare everything down, get rid of the posters, maybe get rid of one of the covers, and it won't be signed in the future. For the new perks that'll pop up for the more long-term in-demand store, and then we'll close it down before we do Door Kickers 2, which I'm hoping to start putting stuff out in the fall. Not sure exactly when we'll end up going live with Door Kickers 2, but it's coming right now. It's looking like 2 48-page books, maybe one large book, depends on how we go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be a double-sided story.
So this is my official go back door kickers. You're not gonna regret it. It is. There's so much good writing in it, and there's so much intrigue. It's it's really well done.
That. Hell yeah!
And obviously get Peregrine. I mean, Peregrine's awesome. It's got a really great Preston Acevedo cover that I had to get, so I ended up backing it again. Thanks for that, Scott. I appreciate it. Not bitter in the least.
Let me just say this: nobody.
Your bank account is.
Yeah, nobody. So this is the best surprise of all was when Ethan, from a $5 super chat, said, "Oh yeah, Peregrines," because he had been aware of it, but he hadn't really done anything with it on his program. And so he pulls it up, and then he starts looking at the art, and he starts flipping out, I couldn't believe how strongly he embraced Doug's art, and just everything we as a team have put into that book. And so that was. That's not one of these kind of like us bugging him and he finally has us on and we pitch it on a shill stream. That was him discovering it organically. But we have been bugging him, but he's a busy guy. So, and he loved it and he's talked about it unbidden several times since then. And so, that's the kind of thing that just really makes us proud to know that you never expect people to like the stuff that you create. But we've been very lucky, and I've been very lucky to be part of 2 campaigns where people just really embraced it. And I look forward to continuing to bring great IPs that people can, connect to in the future. So
absolutely
more to follow. Peregrine 2 and Door Kickers are in the work.
Hell yeah. So super excited for that. Thank you so much, Scott, for being on. Will, sleepy, tired, slightly grumpy little Will down there in the corner. How you doing? Off.
I'm doing fine.
I hate you so much.
He's shopping eBay right now.
What?
Oh, right? Such a jerk.
I write a bunch of bullshit that Dan makes good. And
at least you're being honest about it.
And I write bullshit that Dan makes good, essentially. But it's called Black Flag, and it's great because Dan's drawing it.
It's a good thing we're not relying on you to be the fucking hype man for this shit. God damn.
Hey, go back Black Flag. It's got a lot of amazing storylines, beautiful art, and it's got fucking awesome swag. And don't listen to Will. He doesn't write shit. He writes really well. He's just being a dickhead right now.
Damn.
Because I kept him up past his 9 o'clock bedtime, so he's a little bit cranky.
It's 8 o'clock bedtime. I didn't get my nap.
Oh, poor baby. You know that you're coming on writing Prose and we're gonna go late. Why do you not nap earlier?
You weren't here to give me my bottle. So. Or my Georgia sweet tea.
More than no.
Stop, Luke.
No.
Just stop right there.
No.
You'll get your 05 issue.
There's no brain bleach. I need brain bleach now, Shae.
Oh my gosh!
Thank
I
you.
don't have any. If Sai were here, Sai would have
big
some.
enough to kind of cradle me, so.
I mean, that's because you're a small child. That's
exactly.
Wee little Pixie.
Go back Black Flag. It's very good. You will get your 0.5 issue, I promise, and it's going to be wonderful.
It's going to be
kick
amazing.
Ass.
I'm super excited for it. So much so that I backed it twice intentionally after backing it twice accidentally.
She's the whole reason why you haven't gotten your 0.5 issue yet.
I am not. I didn't. At no point in time do I have a bank account to back high enough for us to have hit a 0.5 issue already. Okay, thank you very much. I am broke working 2 jobs and an E5 in the Air Force. There's very little to my paycheck. Scott can back me up on that. He knows how much an E5
But you've got, socialized medicine. You could put aside something.
I can't. Socialized medicine is why my paycheck is so low.
Well, let me just say that my government paycheck is probably bigger than it should be based on the amount of shit work that I do. So
that's because you're an officer.
Oh, I mean, you're not an officer? I thought everybody was an officer.
No. Some of us are just
but I am petty.
We're the backbone of the officers.
That's right. That's right. It's the non-commissioned part. I keep forgetting about.
The non-commissioned, which is the important part that drops. Yes, drops my paycheck by like 10%. Yes. It's just straight down there. Anywho, thank you all for joining this absolutely phenomenal shit show. Please, as always, like, share, and subscribe to Red Valkyrie. Every day we are getting closer and closer to our 1,000 goal, and I love every last one of you guys for coming out, saying hey, talking comics with me, and dealing with my absolute complete and utter shit show bullshit. I love all of you guys. You guys are amazing.
Best shit show on the web.
Thank you. That's what we go for. Being the best shit show that has ever existed on YouTube. But thank you guys so much for coming out. And please make sure that you back all of these amazing projects. All of the backings will be in the description as soon as we close out, because StreamYard is a bitch and won't let me do it live. I tried a couple times and told me to fuck off. So we will persevere. But thank you guys so much for coming out. And we will catch you all next Sunday. See you later.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks.